MP and Reform UK. Sir John blamed the decline on the Prime Minister's unpopularity, with his approval rating now at -32. And the Prince of Wales has met US President-elect Donald Trump during a ceremony to mark the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris 5 years after it was devastated by a fire. Prince William joined world leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, for the landmark event. Kensington Palace described the Prince's meeting with Trump as warm and friendly, with discussions focusing on UK-US special relationship and global issues. Trump praised William as a good man doing a fantastic job and shared fond memories of the late Queen, which the Prince was said to appreciate deeply. President Macron, in his speech, called the restoration a lesson of fragility, humility and will. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. It is fast approaching 7 minutes after 3 o'clock. Coming up, Syrian rebel forces in the Syrian capital Damascus have said that they have ended Bashar Assad's rule, with rebel leaders saying the future is ours. I will speak with the defence editor of The Telegraph on this and what it means for the world and indeed the UK. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? Russia has confirmed that the Syrian president resigned and fled Syria early on this morning, following a lightning offensive by the jihadist-led opposition forces, who quickly seized the cities of Aleppo, Hama, Homs and also now Damascus, with very little resistance. But this is a good thing for the UK. Currently, I've got a poll up on X asking you that very question. Please cast that vote. Then, in Worldview, we'll be crossing live to Tel Aviv to speak with mystified performer Uri Geller to get his thoughts on the current situation in the Middle East. All of that on the way, as ever. Send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. So world leaders congregated in Paris to mark the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. I was there, not at that, but I was there that day, and then I came back on the Eurostar. Glad I didn't fly. Crikey, the weather was horrendous. This was to mark the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral 5 years after that fire, which destroyed parts of the building. President-elect Donald Trump took the opportunity to meet with Prince William, where they discussed global conflicts and the US-UK special relationship. Well, joining me now is GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, thank you very much for joining me. You were there as well.
I was there, luckily, on Friday and Saturday. Came back on the Eurostar yesterday. I didn't realise you'd been there too. But, yeah, it was quite something. And Notre Dame, I mean, I didn't see the inside. I saw it on the TV like we all did, because 1,500 very lucky people that were invited inside. But I did see it from the outside, and it is incredible what they've managed in 5.5 years. It is rebuilt, the roof completely rebuilt, the spire as well, and transformed inside because it's been cleaned and it looks incredible. But first of all, it made me think, why can't we manage to get things built in any sort of good time frame? I mean, look at HS2, these things drag on and on. But also, it was a huge diplomatic coup, really, for President Macron yesterday, getting Trump and Zelensky there and together. But President Macron is domestically in a very, very bad place indeed.
But it was a real bromance, I thought. Now, of course, Prince William was sent, presumably by Keir Starmer, to go. That's, as I understand, the protocol. Do you think he's kind of saving his bacon in a bit, Keir Starmer's bacon a little bit, by doing this? Because Keir Starmer, I'm not sure how welcomed he would be at that event.
Well, certainly. I've been in touch with Number 10 a couple of times about this to clarify. So the reason the Prime Minister was not there is because the invitation was sent to heads of state, so the King and obviously William is next in line. But you're quite right, Nana. I feel also that we know that the government would have preferred Kamala Harris to have won. We know this. Whatever they say now, they will have to have a decent working relationship with Trump. He's leader of the free world. But I think it's easier for the Prince of Wales because we know that Trump was a huge admirer of our late Queen. Is a big admirer of Britain, and I think for him having that 40-minute meeting with Prince William, who of course is going to be king, and worth saying it was supposed to be earlier in the day and the Prince of Wales was delayed because of the dreadful storm, so Trump sort of moved stuff around to meet him. I think he will have enjoyed that, and I think it stands us in good stead because of course we really need a good relationship with Trump. He is the most important person on earth, and he's got big plans for Europe, particularly Ukraine, but also he's threatening to bring in all sorts of trade tariffs, which if he does that to us is going to be very bad for our economy. So I think we're very fortunate to have Prince William able to fulfil that role yesterday.
Agreed. Catherine Forster, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is, of course, our GBNews political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Well, it's just coming up to 12 minutes after 3 o'clock now. The UK has welcomed the fall of Bashar al-Assad's barbaric regime as the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer called for the restoration of peace and stability in the country. Joining me now, Defence Editor at The Telegraph, Con Coughlin. Con, thank you very much for joining me. So, first of all, can you just, for those who haven't really understood what has happened, what has actually happened in Syria?
Well, the regime of Bashar al-Assad, he's been in power for 24 years in Damascus. He took over from his father, who established the dictatorship in 1970. He's been overthrown. It looks like he's fled to Russia with his family. The Russians are have been one of his backers, together with Iran. But the Russians have clearly got very tired of Bashar al-Assad, who is a very weak individual on a personal level. He did preside over the brutality the regime inflicted on the Syrian people during the civil war. An estimated 500,000 people were killed because of Assad's policies in the Syrian conflict. And now the Islamist opposition, a group that previously has had ties with al-Qaeda and is therefore regarded with great suspicion by Western governments, now seems to be in control of the country. But it's a very fluid situation, and we'll just have to see what the eventual outcome is in terms of the future regime.
So is it sort of a out of the frying pan into the fire with this next regime, potentially?
Well, there's certainly a leap into the unknown. And we don't know a great deal about these Islamist groups. Back in the early days of the Civil War, when the West was looking to back the opposition forces, we kept well away from groups like this because, as I said, they had links to al-Qaeda, and we tended to work with other pro-democratic groups like the Kurds. So we have to see. It does look, the way these opposition groups conduct themselves in their advance on the capital, Damascus, that they are behaving themselves. This is not like Islamic State that inflicted terrible acts of barbarity on people they captured, as you'll probably recall, Nana. So, we have to wait and see who these people are. But I think a lot of people in the region and in the West will have grave reservations about whether getting rid of Assad, who was a brutal dictator, will actually make Syria a better and safer place.
Because for him to get away, this must have been a very coordinated attack, because it's not just one place they've done, it's four, including Damascus. So would he have been given some forewarning, or how? Do we know how he knew?
Well, I think like most dictators, he'll have had a couple of plans in his desk drawer to get his family and himself to safety in the event of the regime crumbling. I mean, dictators are always in a rather precarious position. They rely on all their sycophants and loyalists to keep them in power, but they're greatly unpopular among the people, and that's very much the case in Syria. As I said, Syria's endured 14 years of civil war. The vast majority of Syrian people are sick and tired of Bashar al-Assad, so I'm sure he had Plan A and Plan B and Plan C to facilitate his escape in the event of the regime suddenly crumbling.
And do we know where he's fled to?
It looks as though he's gone to Russia. Right. Certainly during the dark days of the Civil War, when his regime was in trouble, and before the Russians intervened militarily to save the regime in 2015, it was rumored then that the Russians had offered to take him into exile in Russia and put somebody else in Damascus who would stabilize the regime. Remember, the Russians have two important military bases in Syria. They have their only Mediterranean naval port in Syria, in Tartus, and the Russians are very keen to maintain this military foothold in Syria, which dates back to the Soviet era. I think questions will now be asked whether the Russians can do this, and some are already saying this is a major humiliation for Putin, who's been one of Assad's main backers. So there's a lot of geopolitics at play here too, Nana.
It is, crikey. And do we do much with Syria in terms of trade? What are the risks to us if this regime turns out to be a bad one?
Well, we have very little to do with Syria. Syria's been a rogue state from our perspective for many years. I mean, I've worked in the region, and for as long as I can remember, Britain, the US, and other Western powers have had a very fractured relationship with Syria. So I think the implication for us is, if an Islamist government takes root in Damascus, does this then become a breeding ground for Islamist terror groups? Does Islamic State come back? Does it cause further destabilization in the Middle East? Those are the sort of implications it could have for our national security.
And also whether a lot of people might flee there and come to the UK claiming persecution, and then we obviously have to then house more refugees as they're fleeing conflict. All right, well, listen, thank you very much, Con Coughlin. Really good to talk to you. He's the defence editor at The Telegraph. Thank you so much. Right, well, 16 minutes after 3 o'clock, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, it's time for our first Great British debate of this hour. I'm asking, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? This is GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The way in which children are being driven online because we're not taking them seriously offline. And what we're tending to do is seeing the problems entirely on the social media, forgetting the fact that we've given up on children being able to work independently and play independently outdoors. We've basically created a world where the digital bedroom has become this go-to area for a lot of young kids. We've given up on old-fashioned parenting, where we try to cultivate their resilience. And now we blame everything, all the problems that occur online. You have to remember that if you take something like bullying, bullying doesn't have to only take place online. It happens all the time, offline, in everyday life. But yet we only see the problem on the social media, and there's this obsession with the social media where every single problem that afflicts childhood is blamed on it. And that distracts us from actually understanding what we're doing wrong with children. So for me, and I hate when I see children with digital technology, when I see them with smartphones. I'm not a fan. I'm much more concerned about the fact that parents use their digital phones when they're having dinner with their kids and giving very bad examples in relation to that. But the real problem, it seems to me, is offline, and that's why we've got to crack the issue. So for me, the banning issue is entirely a headline-grabbing political gambit. And I think that we should be much more focused on the real problems rather than delude ourselves that anything will improve.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. If you just tuned in, it's fine. It's the beginning of the show, so I won't have a go at you just yet. Yes, the dulcet tones that you can hear, of course, those of Danny Kelly and Susie Stride. But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? Russia has confirmed that the Syrian president resigned and fled Syria early on this morning, following a lightning offensive by the jihadist-led opposition forces, who's quickly seized multiple locations with little resistance. But should this be welcomed by the Western countries? And could there be consequences to rebels taking over? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? So joining me, political commentator Susie Stride, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. You had a blowout, didn't you?
I did, on the motorway yesterday. Sorry, last week. I couldn't make it last week because I was driving down from the Midlands, 96 miles every Sunday, 96 miles back. Luckily, I was doing 70 miles an hour because if I'm running late for the show, I may exceed that. And all of a sudden, rear-wheel drive, BMW's rear-wheel drives, and starts to fishtail. And the AA are brilliant, but it took them 2 hours to get to me.
Well, you should have told them you were pregnant.
Well, I looked. The guy, when he saw me, he said...
I would have believed it.
The guy, when he saw my stomach, he said, "Madam, are you pregnant?" 2 hours. And the guy told me off. The guy told me off because I wasn't in the car. It was... You're supposed to...
Yeah, you're supposed
to be out of the car. It was hammering down and I was in the...
You were in the car.
I was in the car. I was watching the show.
Yeah.
First thing he did was give me a rollicking.
Do that. Just to remind you, people, don't ever do that. If you do get into difficulties...
You're supposed to be out of the car.
Get out of the car. But pull in if you can, or pull out even.
Very important.
Susie Stride, welcome. So your thoughts on this whole business? Assad has run away, obviously. Otherwise, he probably would have been killed. The Syrian regime has been overthrown. Where do you stand with this?
I mean, I think this... You know, you can't not say this isn't a good thing in that he was a very evil man. Thousands and thousands of his own people were murdered and tortured by him. The UN stopped counting. That's how many he killed. That's how many disappeared. But obviously the uncertainty is we don't know what's coming behind and we don't know whether it's going to be far worse. The hope is that it won't be. But I think it is a good thing. I think, we watched what played out. When was it? It was almost 10 years ago now, what he was doing to his people. I can't remember how many Syrians are displaced, but it's a huge number. But there was I was listening to a journalist being interviewed earlier on today who was just emotional. I mean, he was tortured under the Assad regime and he was just talking of the thousands that have been killed by him. So I think it is a good day because I think he was evil, he was corrupt. When you have your own soldiers, taking off uniforms, surrendering and saying, we're not going to fight for him, but they were malnourished, they weren't properly looked after, they got to his palace and he's got, Mercedes-Benz and all these millions of pounds worth of cars. I mean, that kind of man, that wealthy, not looking after his own army, that they would surrender in that way. I mean, I think it just speaks for itself. However, be silly not to be cautious because we don't know what's going to replace him. We don't know how evil they're going to be. We can see their connections with ISIS, etc. So I think it's very uncertain.
Well, I'm not sure. The question is it going to be good for the United Kingdom? I'm not sure it's going to be good for the United Kingdom. It's full of uncertainty. Yes, he was a despot, but he was a secular country in the sense that, like, for example, in Damascus this morning, there won't be many Christians going to Mass, whereas there would have been last Sunday, because in Damascus this morning, there are jihadi lunatics walking around the streets with AK-47s. So it's no longer a secular society. He was a horrible man and he killed tens of thousands. I get all of that. Going back to the question, is it going to be good for the UK? There are 3.5 million Syrian immigrants in Turkey. There are 1 million Syrian immigrants in Germany. I'm not sure about the number in the United Kingdom. It might be beneficial to the United Kingdom in the future if people decide to go back to Syria, because the reason that they fled Syria, went to Germany, went to the UK, went to Turkey, is because of the regime. That regime is no longer in place. But like you, Susie, I'm worried worried about what is going to replace it. Whenever I hear soldiers running around firing AK-47s on the TV screen into the air shouting Allahu Akbar, that worries me about what is going to replace Assad. Look at Libya. Look at Iraq. Now, the downfall of Hussein directly led to ISIS. Now, look at Gaddafi and Libya. Exactly. Yes, he was a horrible, vile man who tortured. The question about is it going to be beneficial to the United Kingdom because of the downfall of Hussein? That's not been beneficial to the United Kingdom because we've had so many people flee the country and we had the emergence of ISIS.
The problem is, again, it's like a snake. You cut off one head and then lots of other heads emerge. And as this regime that have taken over are more, in a sense, despotic, so they're more separate sort of units, like cells. How united are they in a sort of potential government material? Because that's the worry. You cut off one head and then you end up with something a lot worse, as Danny alluded to. And that does seem to be what often happens and has been happening repeatedly.
Yeah, and Danny's absolutely right, and this is the problem. You know, we could now see something far worse emerge, and I suppose the hope of the international community is that isn't going to happen. It's very interesting. I heard someone saying that this is very much a result of, obviously, what's going on geopolitically, because Russia, who obviously came to the aid of Assad, whenever it was, 10 years ago, if it was like 2012, obviously was so weakened by Ukraine, there was no way that Russia were going to be able to intervene. And likewise, Iran, who are friends with Assad, because of them doing everything they're doing for Hezbollah with the Israel-Gaza stuff, there's that weakened support from them. So it's very much, we've seen geopolitics, which I suppose you'd expect, play out here. But yeah, it's massive uncertainty. And the fact is what comes next could be worse, but we need to hope it's not.
Well, listen, a lot of you have been getting in touch with your views on this. GBNews.com/your say. Ian Pope says, Bashar al-Assad is missing. Anyone tried Calais?
He'll be over on a dinghy soon.
They think he might have gone to Russia.
Well, that's what they're saying. We think he's gone to Russia.
Well, some people are saying that his plane was shot down because it was being tracked, and then all of a sudden it was no longer being tracked. Now, maybe that's because they switched all the GPS gear off.
The GPS.
I don't know. May I just add one thing, though? Western democracies like Britain, the US and everything, we always rejoice with the potential that there could be all of a sudden a democracy in certain parts of the Middle East. But what we need to understand with all of these despots is that it's a tribal form of government. There have been centuries and centuries and centuries of tribal government. And then all of a sudden we want to remove the head of the tribe, whether it's Hussein, Gaddafi or Assad, and replace him with a Western-style democracy. And everyone rejoices about it, but it doesn't work sometimes, depending on where you are, because that's not what they're about.
Yeah. No, 100%.
There's an interesting message here by James. I can't really read the full thing out because it's a bit much, but the point that James is making is that he refers to Keir Starmer celebrating and rejoicing. He's not really celebrating, is he? But he's just saying that the Islamic Jihad terrorists, labelled as rebels, they've overthrown Syria with RPGs, murder, rockets and every automatic gun at their disposal. And he also points out that how quick will the RNLI be picking up people from across the channel as people flee from this regime as well. I mean, obviously, it's not Keir Starmer's fault. He has to be friendly with all leaders of all countries. That is the job of a leader. But the point he's making is that, it's almost that you're saying, oh, great, Assad is gone. But the people who you're kind of saying, oh, great, now there's a new regime, are rebels who have overthrown Syria using rockets and everything else like that. And,
It won't be secular. It will be religiously driven. And that's the problem. Whenever you have a religiously driven form of government, quote-unquote, look at the Taliban. They promised, as soon as, Biden removed the troops in Afghanistan, they said, look, we're going to bring some sort of democracy, we're going to treat people differently. And that's because they wanted, their feet under the table at the United Nations. And then all of a sudden, I think in the news last week, there's stories about women not being able to walk without the headgear, or you could lower in the age of marriage. It's ridiculous. Reversing to type.
All right, well, we've got some more views. Grumpy Grandad said Assad going could make things worse in Syria, and the nations surrounding it. The UK won't benefit from it at all. We're likely to see more refugees, and ISIS is rearing its ugly head again. Well, the rebels were linked to ISIS. I don't know whether things have changed with them. Margaret said that I'm quite conflicted about Assad leaving Syria. Yes, he was in league with enemies of the West, but during his reign, he was accepting of all religions in his country. I saw on TV a Christian bishop in Syria, kind of alluding to where you're going, Danny, with this, who said that they hoped Assad would still be in power because he allowed all religions to practice freely.
That's right.
There was, I mean, I suppose...
May I just very quickly add one thing about secular societies? Saddam Hussein donated... There used to be a mosque in Birmingham called the Saddam Hussein Mosque. It's now changed its name. But Saddam Hussein used to give millions of pounds to charities all around, to Western mosques to help fund them. But also, going back to the secular point, there would be cathedrals and there would be churches every Sunday packed to the rafters with Christians in Iraq. And now, no, you can't do that now.
Well, we'll see. Well, listen, we will watch this, you know, with interest and see where it goes and see how it will affect us here in the UK. That's Danny Kelly and Susie Stride joining me for the show. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is now the time to be talking about electric combat vehicles? But first, let's get your latest headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. At 3:30, these are your headlines. The Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Bashar Assad's barbaric regime in Syria as he calls for the restoration of peace and stability. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. Here, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. Strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Travel is heavily disrupted, train services are delayed and the Severn Bridge remains closed. 250,000 homes are still without electricity after the storm brought 93-mile-an-hour winds on Saturday. In other news, the leader of Edinburgh City Council has been suspended by the Labour Party after claims he sent inappropriate sexual messages to Ukrainian refugees, including through a dating app. Police are now investigating a report of Cammy Day's behaviour made through the council's whistleblowing service. Opposition leaders, including from the SNP, are calling for his immediate resignation, describing the allegations as beyond shocking. The leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, says the claims are deeply distressing and insists the party acted swiftly when alerted on Saturday. Mr Day, who denies any contact from police, has not commented on the allegations. And the Prince of Wales has met US President-elect Donald Trump during a ceremony to mark the reopening of Notre Dame in Paris. It's 5 years after it was devastated by a fire there. Prince William joined world leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, for the landmark event. Kensington Palace described the Prince's meeting with Trump as warm and friendly, with discussions focusing on the UK-US special relationship and global issues. Trump praised William as a good man doing a fantastic job and shared fond memories of the late Queen, which the Prince was said to appreciate deeply. President Macron, in his speech, called the restoration a lesson of fragility, humility and will. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara will be clearing its way southeastwards with the winds slowly easing before higher pressure starts building into the week. So this is the storm that will gradually clear its way southeastwards, but we still have a real squeeze in those isobars, so indicating some strong winds. So through this evening, it's going to be a damp evening across central parts of England and the southeast with outbreaks of rain. Further towards the north, though, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, here we'll hold on to the clearest skies, and that will allow temperatures to fall underneath the light winds. So here we could wake up to a touch of frost. Further towards the south, still breezy, especially across the English Channel, with lows around 6 or 7 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is going to be a cold start across Scotland with a frost in places, but also perhaps some freezing fog. That's a similar picture across Northern Ireland as well. Bright skies to start, but with a touch of frost. Further across England and Wales, a lot of clouds still around with some showery outbreaks of rain just coming in towards the south and east. It is still going to be breezy, especially along the south, but light winds further towards the north, and towards the north, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine through Monday. Further south, though, we will still hold on to a lot of cloud, but it will be a lot drier than what we've seen over the weekend, with a few showers on and off. Otherwise, a cold feeling day across the north underneath the clearest skies, but further towards the south, highs of up to 9 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, a lot of clouds still focus across much of England and Wales, with some outbreaks of showery rain, but clearest skies further towards the north with a dip in temperatures. But we hold on to higher pressure as we go through the week, but it is still going to be quite cloudy at times. Bye-bye.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
37 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget as well, you can download the GB News app, check out all the programmes that we have here, and you can watch them at your leisure. It's free. But now it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is now really the time to be talking about electric combat vehicles? Labour's ministers are said to be forging ahead with plans to use EVs for combat on the battlefield, after the government have pledged to put its wider net zero goals at the heart of its defence industrial strategy. However, there are warnings from military grandees that they could put our armed forces and our soldiers at risk. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is now really the time to be talking about electric combat vehicles? Well, joining me to discuss, political commentator Susie Stride, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Danny Kelly, I'm going to start with you.
I just think the concept of this is just ludicrous. Of all the things, of all the vehicles that you need to know can be started in the morning or in the middle of a tank battle or in the middle of some sort of conflict, is a diesel-powered engine. Now, if the diesel runs out, it's going to take 2 minutes to fill the diesel up. You're not going to have to... What are you going to do halfway through a battle? Are you going to just bring a portable charger? Now, I know it's not a tank at this moment, but in the future we're going to be talking about tanks. We're talking about combat vehicles. I tell you what, there should be 3 or 4 agencies that are isolated from this idiocy. One is the army, the other one is the police. Can you imagine? A patrol car is on patrol 24 hours a day. Sarge, we've got to go to a robbery. Well, where's the Ford Focus? Oh, it's on charge. We can't get to the robbery.
Well,
the Focus is on charge.
You say that, they're already... I think they're onto that one already. And also the other one, electric ambulances.
Ambulances, because, of course, an ambulance has to have a generator. They have to have air conditioning on in the summer if the patient's in the back. They have to have the blue flashing lights, as do the old bill cars. The plod, when you see plod at the side of a road with its engine running, that engine's running because it's got the lights going.
Well, defibrillators, all the equipment.
Yeah, and fire. Can you imagine fire engines in 30 years' time? A fire engine not getting to the scene of a fire because it's on charge. It's ridiculous.
But why would they even invest in this idea, which even when you talk about it is laughable? Susie Stride.
I mean, I think just coming to that, like with ambulances and police cars. I live in the area with the highest pollution rates in the country, so the lungs of the kids. So my brother had to move his daughter because she was getting asthma. The levels of asthma amongst kids, basically in a very poor community, far higher than if you live in Kensington, Hampstead or Oxford or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think pollution rates, and I'm not on this even for the lobby people, this annoying lobby people. It's not about that. For me, I generally have a problem with kids getting asthma, do you know what I mean? Because they live by a certain road or in a certain community or whatever. So I think pollution levels, police cars, I'm not so bothered about that. I think when it comes to the army, I think this is concerning. I mean, I actually have an electric car, which I share with my mum, and I couldn't drive all the way to the Lake District in the summer. I had to stop and charge it and stop and charge it and stop.
How long did it take you?
I don't even want to tell you how long it took. He just said on the way. We had an interview on the way, so I'm sitting there charging my car, and we were having like a little interview about the riots at the time. And so and I think when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to durability, when it comes to what's being said here, actually putting lives at risk. I just think maybe this is something for in the future, but I wouldn't say, the technology's just not there yet from what I can see.
Well, the other thing is, obviously, with an electric car, if it is on fire, so, I mean, like, if I was in the army and I was attacking somebody with an EV, I would just attack the charger and then just wait a bit. You know what I mean? Wait till they've run out of juice. But obviously with an EV, though, if it does go on fire, you can't put them out.
Yeah, okay.
You can't put them out, can you?
I think
you have to wait till the battery just dies.
Yeah, you can't put them out. It doesn't matter how much water you hose on the thing. You cannot put them out. It takes hours and hours and hours.
Wow.
So you can't do that either. So it just begs the question as to who is stupid enough to contemplate this notion.
A politician with a big pair on him should just say, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I get the 2050 thing, the net zero. But look, we need our police cars to be petrol and diesel powered. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not going to get to crashes on the M40. We need our tanks and our military vehicles to be diesel powered. For the same reason, we're going to be in the middle of a battle and the damn thing runs out. How are you going to charge it up? Ambulances, we need to just have a bit of common sense. Yes, try and get everyone driving Lecky cars. Not that that's going to succeed anyway. But we also need just to be sensible with our military and police. I think it is the big thing, isn't it, this whole net zero thing? It's like you do need to have people of common sense also in the room. It's like, well, actually, if it's going to lead to deindustrialisation and people are going to lose jobs, well, there's a kind of cost-benefit analysis thing that's got to go on there. And it's almost like that goes out the window, like it always trumps. And right, it does. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's good common sense. I don't think that's right for people's quality of life. It's not good for the economy. And for me, it does infuriate me when it comes to jobs. I know we're not talking about that right now, as it were. So it's a strange one, and I don't know why this lobby is so strong, because it's right and it's good, but it can't be. Well, it's emotional blackmail. It's emotional blackmail. If you disagree or if you resist, then all of a sudden you're on the wrong side of things, whether it's a tank battle or whether it's a 999 patrol car. It's emotional blackmail.
I think it's about money and it's about control. So these, obviously, it's great if you are the arbiter of owning all these things that people require, like the rare earth minerals that are used for these cars, the lithium, the cobalt and all that kind of thing. If you've got those mines and those things within your country, then you have a lot of power. It's a bit like oil and gas. We've just transferred it to something else. So this is about being able to manipulate something. And also, I think it's just like with a mobile phone. Your phone has a certain amount of time that it will exist in a good way before the battery goes. It's a way of now forcing you to now go shopping and buy the next one, because you're not going to buy a battery for your EV. You're just going to buy a new EV when it dies. And again, here we are, people trying to make money and work out the timings, and also the fact that these things could potentially be controlled in terms of how fast they go, whether they're driverless or not, the technology that...
What about aircraft? At some point, they're going to go after aircraft, aren't they? Are you going to cross the Atlantic with a battery rather than jet fuel? But at some point, they're going to come after aircraft. If they're coming after little tanks on the battlefield, they're going to come after 747s and 757s. You're going to go to the Mediterranean with a battery-powered 737 Boeing? Of course you're not.
No,
you want some jet fuel in those damn engines.
Of course, I'm not going to.
Because if one engine goes, you've got another engine. It's going to keep spinning.
And I think that we don't know where technology is going to be, because look where we are now. You know how quickly technology. I mean, even AI. 10 years ago, AI wasn't even a thing. You know, and then now it's quite. I mean, I use AI almost every day. I use ChatGPT. I love it. You know, and so it's just like we don't know where technology may be in 10 years' time, but it's almost like we're getting ahead of ourselves with it, and I think that is problematic. And again, I don't like the fact that it's so obvious that there are vested interests here, which are not about the climate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's my problem with it.
Well,
it's money.
If you were going to really concentrate on, reducing CO2 or cooling the planet, the first thing you do is plant lots of trees. I mean, that is the reason why the planet is heated up so much, because nature's natural way of keeping it cool, we've stripped all those away. So the first thing you would do, you wouldn't tell somebody to use an electric car or all this. You would actually grow more trees, which, frankly, is quite free. It's free, which is why they don't want us to do it.
Just went on a cruise, stopped off at Amsterdam, and you've got these loons who are trying to stop the cruise ships actually getting into Amsterdam, because they reckon cruise ships, 6,000 people on a cruise ship, right? How many aircraft is that removing from the sky? 6,000 on one vessel, and they're saying that it's still bad for the environment. You can't win with them. And as soon as we got off, they had all of these women in red gowns, white makeup, all pretending they're on a funeral march or something.
Well, how did they get there? Presumably they drove.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't.
Well, no, not in Amsterdam. Everyone's on a push bike. Lots of push bikes.
But that's also,
Never seen so many push bikes.
But that's also these people that are always pushing this. I'm like, well, how many flights have you taken? From where to where to where to where?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
interestingly,
it's okay for you to do that, but everyone else, you know, I just think there's a lot of hypocrisy.
Well, interestingly, I was listening to Esther McVeigh. She was on another radio station talking about EVs, and she happened to have had one, but she's also got a petrol car. And these people were all virtue signaling, saying, but the EV, this and that, and going on and on. And so she just asked them, have any of you got an EV? They all went, well, no.
Really?
I just want to say I do, and they are incredible. They're
But you can't do long distances in it, can you?
Yeah, can't do long distance.
Until the battery
my
goes
dad, because of work, has a Tesla, and that
long
does
distance.
a bit more long distance.
Yeah.
But you know, but I mean, it's very expensive, and it's only because it's through work.
But until the battery it's great until the battery goes out and everything switches off.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, there was that couple who died in their EV because it was something happened. The electrics went, it was on fire, and they couldn't get out.
Hit a tree. I think I was in Texas about 3 or 4 years ago.
Awful.
Couldn't get out of the car.
Couldn't get out.
Everything shut down and engulfed in flames.
And obviously you can't put it out, so that's that.
Yeah.
This is like for me, it's like a tomb buy.
No.
That's my personal view. I will not be buying one. No. But coming up, I'll be speaking to Mr. Fire and performer Uri Geller about the latest in the Middle East. Stay with me.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Last orders at the bar, and I'm joined by Geordie Shore star Ricky Guanaccio. Have I said that right? Is that Italian?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Is Italian? Your parents Italian? Is it?
Pronunciation was pretty much perfect.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, look, mate, Geordie Shore, I've never watched it, mate, so I do apologise about that. But I know these reality TV shows are making big stars out of the people, making you famous, making you loads of money. Is it worth it?
For me personally, yeah. It's been a hell of a career. Been a hell of a lot of fun doing it. Ups and downs, but first and foremost, money-wise, yeah.
That's good. So people stopping in the street, you being famous, wanting the autograph and all. How do you cope with that, Ricky?
Well, when we first started doing the show, I mean, we got our show off the back of Jersey Shore in America. We never expected the fame that we got, and you know, being one of the biggest reality TV shows in the UK and now the world. You know, it's in 150 odd countries worldwide. Wow. It's pretty crazy. It's when you're living in houses. I mean, for example, Geordie Shore and Love Island's probably the same as well. When you're living in villas and you're living in houses, the arguing side sort of plays on your mind. You've got to deal with all that. You know, it's a hard place to be. It's a pressure cooker.
You're living in one of these villas, Ricky, or one of these houses. Do you ever wake up one morning and think, what am I doing here?
When I first started, yes. Yeah. Now, I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't mind all the, you know, there's no emotion connecting me now with filming. It's kind of like I go in there, it's fun, or it's, you know, it's dramatic, whatever it may be.
Have you ever worked behind a bar?
No.
No?
Yeah, for not a long period of time. My mum and dad had a...
Well, I can
definitely messed this one up.
Yeah, I can actually believe that you've never worked behind a bar.
Yeah, so my parents sacked us when I worked in the restaurant.
Well, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't get a job here with a pint like that, would you?
Do you want it?
No, mate, no.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
49 minutes after 3 o'clock, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. We'll be speaking to Mr. Fire performer Uri Geller about the latest in the Middle East. Stay tuned, he is here right now. So, Uri, obviously there's an ongoing situation in Syria. There's been reports that suggesting that Israeli forces appear to have captured Mount Hermon in a UN-controlled buffer zone in southwest Syria. I don't know whether you've heard about that. Can you tell us a bit more? What's on your mind?
Yes. Well, OK, let me tell you. First of all, by the way, congratulations for GB News. We're taking Sky. Wow, in the rating, war rating. Well done. Well done, GB News. Fantastic. And you'll probably double the rating. You know why? Because of me. I'm only joking. Okay, yeah, I'm sending you, every week I'm sending GB News amazing powers. Okay, Nana, I have to talk to you about what is happening in Syria. This is right on Israel's doorstep, just miles from where I am standing, where I'm talking to you. Look, we're witnessing incredible events. This is like the fall of the Berlin Wall. So Assad, the Syrian president, has been overthrown. Everyone is shocked, and I say, good. Assad was a barbarian. He was a tyrant. He was a dictator. He slaughtered 500,000 of his own people just to stay in power. But he only survived for so long because Iran and Russia helped him. There are rumors, by the way, unconfirmed, that his plane was shot down. I don't know if you heard that.
Okay,
now,
so we did hear something about that his plane was on the radar and then suddenly it wasn't. But maybe they just switched off the tracking system or the radar stuff.
Exactly, possible. Now, his departure is a political earthquake, and this will change everything. And let me explain, because it is important that your viewers, the GB viewers that we have every day, you have every day, every week watching me, you have to understand this. This time, Assad could not rely on Iran and Russia to save him. This is because my country, Israel, the Holy Land, has devastated Hezbollah, which Iran had previously sent to fight for him. Meanwhile, Russia is now too busy with Ukraine to help Assad. Look, Nana, listen closely, because this is the important part. The fall of Assad spells the end of one of Israel's biggest enemies. It is also a devastating blow to Iran, because the rebels hate Iran, and Iran will be kicked out of Syria for good. Let me just show you, to those who do not know, how Assad looks. Let me tell you why all this is good news for anyone who believes in peace. Assad fall weakens, look at Assad. Assad falls weakens Iran. And if Iran is weakened, then Hamas is weakened too. Don't forget that Hamas is still holding nearly 100 hostages kidnapped from Israel, from their beds. And President Trump said there will be hell to pay if the hostages aren't released before he takes office. Finally, Nana, I'm hopeful that things are about to get better in the Middle East and even worldwide. Israel is more secure. Syria fell. Iran has been pushed back, and Donald Trump is taking power. And in Israel, Donald Trump is king. Finally, lots of love to you, to your viewers from the Holy Land. And don't forget, this is the place where miracles happen. Love you all.
Thank you very much. That is Uri Geller. Those are his thoughts. He's there live in Tel Aviv, giving his thoughts on the fall of Assad in Syria. Well, it's just coming up to 6 minutes to 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up in my niggle, I'll be talking about virtue signalling and how it's affected so many different parts of our world, including the armed forces and football. Why on earth do you need to be virtue signalling there? But stay with me, that's on the way next. But now let's get an update with your weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara will be clearing its way southeastwards with the winds slowly easing before higher pressure starts building into the week. So this is the storm that will gradually clear its way southeastwards, but we still have a real squeeze in those isobars, so indicating some strong winds. So through this evening, it's going to be a damp evening across the central parts of England and the southeast with outbreaks of rain. Further towards the north, though, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, here we'll hold on to the clearest skies, and that will allow temperatures to fall underneath the light winds. So here we could wake up to a touch of frost. Further towards the south, still breezy, especially across the English Channel, with lows around 6 or 7 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is going to be a cold start across Scotland with a frost in places, but also perhaps some freezing fog. That's a similar picture across Northern Ireland as well. Bright skies to start, but with a touch of frost. Further across England and Wales, a lot of clouds still around with some showery outbreaks of rain just coming in towards the south and east. It is still going to be breezy, especially along the south, but light winds further towards the north, and towards the north, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine through Monday. Further south, though, we will still hold on to a lot of cloud, but it will be a lot drier than what we've seen over the weekend, with a few showers on and off. Otherwise, a cold feeling day across the north underneath the clearest skies, but further towards the south, highs of up to 9 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, a lot of clouds still focus across much of England and Wales, with some outbreaks of showery rain, but clearest skies further towards the north with a dip in temperatures. But we hold on to higher pressure as we go through the week, but it is still going to be quite cloudy at times. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry, Tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also political commentator Susie Stride. Coming up in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? Russia has confirmed that the Syrian president resigned and fled Syria early on this morning following the lightning offensive by the jihadist-led opposition forces who quickly seized multiple cities in the country. So I've got a poll up on X asking you whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing for the UK. Then coming up next, my niggle, I'll be discussing virtue signalling. Is Starmer's government choosing net zero over defence as they push ahead with plans to use electric vehicles for combat on the battlefield, despite warnings from military grandees that they could put the armed forces at risk? That is in my niggle at 4. And in the interview, I'll speak to former Strictly Come Dancing star Christina, who has joined a special campaign to help tackle the issues of incontinence using her dancing and yoga expertise. And should politicians be forced to answer questions? Have a listen to Angela Rayner on the BBC earlier this week.
Can you name a few of them that have welcomed these proposals?
Well, we've worked with many of the companies. I've worked with so many of them on this. I've had many roundtables, as has the business secretary.
But she couldn't name any. That was, of course, about our new policies for business. We'll be getting stuck into that. But first, let's get to your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 4 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Bashar Assad's barbaric regime in Syria as he calls for the restoration of peace and stability. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. Here, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though the exact numbers remain unclear. Strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued for England, Wales and Scotland. Travel is heavily disrupted, with train services delayed and the Severn Bridge remains closed. 250,000 homes are still without electricity after the storm brought 93-mile-an-hour winds yesterday. The leader of Edinburgh City Council has been suspended by the Labour Party after claims he sent inappropriate sexual messages to Ukrainian refugees, including through a dating app. Police are now investigating a report of Cammy Day's behaviour made through the council's whistleblowing service. Opposition leaders, including from the SNP, are calling for his immediate resignation, describing the allegations as beyond shocking. The leader of Scottish Labour, Nana Akua, says the claims are deeply distressing and insists the party have acted swiftly when alerted on Saturday. Mr Day, who denies any contact from police, has not commented on the allegations. In other news, a march against anti-Semitism is taking place in London today, with demonstrators gathering outside the High Court. The route will pass through Westminster and Whitehall, ending with a rally at Parliament Square. It follows a reported quadrupling of anti-Semitic hate crimes over the past year, making Jewish people the UK's most targeted minority faith group. The rise is linked to the Hamas attacks on Israel in October and the subsequent strikes on Gaza. The UK exported over 8,000 tonnes of banned pesticides in 2023, including enough bee-killing chemicals to spray an area bigger than England. An investigation by Greenpeace revealed that 98% of these exports were linked to Syngenta, which manufacturers say the pesticides in Huddersfield. Campaigners say toxic products like Diquat, banned in the UK since 2018, are being sold to countries with weaker regulations, fueling health and environmental risks. The government insists it requires importing countries' consent and complies with global standards, but critics are calling for a total export ban to align with European restrictions. More than 1.6 million people have signed a Greenpeace petition demanding urgent action. Now, police in New York have released new images in the hunt for the gunman who shot dead United Healthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson in what's believed to have been a targeted assassination. The suspect, seen wearing a hood and face mask, fled on a bike after the killing, leaving behind a backpack containing a Monopoly board and a designer jacket. Investigators are also examining bullet casings marked with the words deny, defend and depose, potentially linking the attack to critics of private health insurance. The FBI has put up a $50,000 reward as the killer is thought to have escaped the state, possibly boarding a bus in Atlanta. New York Mayor Eric Adams insists the net is tightening, with cutting-edge facial recognition tech leading the chase. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prince of Wales has been helping serve Christmas lunch at a homeless shelter run by a charity that he was introduced to by his mother. William wore one of the Passage charity's aprons as he joined the long line of volunteers serving food while chatting with attendees on Thursday. He first visited the London-based homelessness charity more than 30 years ago with his late mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Needless virtue signals. The world is swamped with it. Let's start with Nut Zero. Before it was electric ambulances, which is an absolutely ludicrous proposition, and now it's electric battlefield vehicles. Ridiculous. The government has pledged to put net zero goals at the heart of its defence industrial strategy, which was launched alongside Sir Keir Starmer's dismal reset speech this week. It said the strategy would support net zero's regional growth and economic security and resilience. And it went on to say new and emerging technologies can support decarbonisation effects and improve battlefield capability, reducing the supply chain vulnerability of liquid fuel and also reducing the heat signature and noises of vehicles on the battlefield. Oh, well, I've heard it all. All the enemy has to do is wait till your batteries run out. It's laughable if it wasn't so dangerous. It would leave our troops in dire straits on the battlefield. I'm all for protecting our environment so that we can have a healthy planet to live and grow on. But I'm also for protecting the nation from despots like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. And our troops doing their duty, serving this country, shouldn't be a pawn in the net zero madness when they're trying to keep us Brits safe. I mean, there is no place for virtue signalling on the battlefield. Worse still, as we all know, you can't really put out the battery fire. So how's that going to work on the battlefield? And more virtue signalling on the football pitch as well, with rainbow armbands. I mean, why can't we just focus on the sport itself and winning, not all those other side issues that distract from the mission? But at least in football, it's not a life or death situation. Colonel Richard Kemp, former commander of the British forces in Afghanistan, said, "It is hard enough to keep the current vehicles supplied with fuel. That is a massive operation on its own. I just can't see how it would possibly work with EVs. Fighting battles is an extremely difficult activity. To make it unnecessarily even more difficult seems to be a crazy endeavour. I would be pretty confident that it is just not at all a starter in terms of maintaining the levels of battleground capability that we have now." It's just absurd, isn't it? EV combat vehicles. I mean, where are the chargers going to be? Utter lunacy. We are fast becoming a global laughingstock. I mean, as if you could put a charger on the battlefield. I mean, come on. Why are they putting money into this? But before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? Russia has confirmed that the Syrian president resigned and fled Syria early on this morning following a lightning offensive by the jihadist-led opposition forces who quickly seized multiple cities in the country with little resistance. But is this a good thing for the UK? The poll is up on X asking you that very question. In Worldview, I'll be speaking with the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge, for the latest in the United States. Kamala Harris's campaign is reportedly still taking donations despite losing last month's presidential election. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should there be a law to force politicians to answer questions? Have a listen to Angela Rayner on the BBC earlier this week.
Can you name a company, a few of them, that have welcomed these proposals?
Well, we've worked with many of the companies. I've worked with so many of them on this. I've had many roundtables, as has the business secretary.
Yes, she was asked a few times in the word many, which was a wonderful word to use when you can't answer any. Well, that's in the Great British Debate this hour. Should there be a law to force them to answer questions which they, when they get in power, are not allowed to change? All of that coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. So joining me now, political commentator Nishi Hodgson. Nikki. It's because it's spelled so wonderfully.
I know,
it's got a beautiful
it's such
spelling.
a silly spelling.
No, it's great. It's unique. So, Nikki, what do you think about these virtue signals that we seem to be putting forward for everything, football, and now, obviously, the battlefield with electric vehicles? To me, makes no utter sense at all. I mean, does it make sense to you?
Well, look, there are some very reasonable and valid reasons for caring about LGBTQ rights in football, especially when we consider that 67 countries in the world still think that homosexuality should be punished either by death or imprisonment. And obviously our footballers play all around the globe. And then when it comes to the army, obviously net zero is a real threat. By 2050. We are on course for some major global catastrophes, which include food shortages, global migrants coming from many countries that will be submerged by water or too much heat to the UK or anywhere else in Europe, and also the death of a million species, wiping out of a million species. And that's going to change our habitats, our oceans, our ecosystems.
But what about war? Listen, before we do all that, we'll probably blow ourselves up. So what about war? We need to be able to protect ourselves, even if, yes, with all these other laudable things that we should be doing. The number one priority is obviously to stay alive on the planet, but to keep the country going. Otherwise, if there's no planet, obviously there's nothing, but ultimately we need to be alive on it.
Well, I mean, I just think it's absolute rubbish, actually, what's come out of Keir Starmer's government about the vehicle, the EV, tanks, etc. Because just as you pointed out, Nana, where are the PowerPoints? if you're in a desert or, you know, wherever you're going to charge these up. Okay, they say they'll be quieter. That could be useful, I suppose, for creeping up on other people. But let's be real about this. I mean, I do think that is particular virtue signalling, because what Keir Starmer is trying to do is say, oh, look, we're doing great for the planet, but we'll appease the right by saying we're going to do it around the military, which we really believe in and really want to kind of keep strong and modern. There's nothing environmental about warfare.
Yeah.
It is catastrophic for people, for planet. It just can't be another way. So why on earth he's decided to waste money, time and media exposure on this is beyond me.
Well, you'd be better off if you're in the desert with solar panels, if anything. I mean, I don't think that's a good idea. But to think that you're going to do electric, I just find it absolutely absurd. Now, you're supposed to be defending this. Obviously, you can't.
Well, no, I mean, look, no. I obviously defend the right to net zero. I believe passionately in the appeal to try and reach net zero by 2050. And let's be real, we're at about 2.9% of reduction in emissions, and we need to get to 48% by 2050. We are woefully behind. And as I say, there are going to be some very real-world consequences that are going to happen in our lifetimes. Maybe you're older and you won't be around to see it, but your children and your grandchildren will.
Are you saying me? Maybe I'll be older.
I'm counting me, Nana. I don't know if I'm going to make it that far at this rate.
Well, the thing is, this is the point. This net zero nonsense, which we don't even know if carbon seriously is the enemy. And the fact that we've taken down all the trees, which are the planet's natural way of cooling itself, and then we're coming up with these nonsense ideas that will end up stripping the earth of these plants. I mean, where are we going to park these net zero vehicles? And if it becomes net zero cars, that's a car park, isn't it? You've got to park all the cars to charge them. So you're not going to be parking them on grass or around trees. Or and what earth are you going to pull up to put all the chargers in place? It's just... It's just unconscionable that they would think that this is the right way to do things. And as for battle vehicles, it's just ridiculous.
Well, like you say, I do believe it is virtue signalling, because if you want to really tackle climate change, then you should hold other nations to account that aren't doing anything to tackle it. You know, we can look at where we invest. Think about what happened with Tata Steel plant that closed down earlier in the year. There was a prime opportunity there for Keir Starmer when he got into power to work with Tata, who wanted to transform the plant into renewable energy over a period of years. And because it couldn't be done in the right time frame, it was just got rid of altogether. That is just anathema to me. What are you doing? We can't switch from fossil fuels to renewables overnight. We can't toss people out of jobs that have been there 30 years or just say you've got to learn this skill by whenever it is to keep doing your job. We haven't got a proper plan. We're in panic mode. That's not going to get us anywhere. If you remember before the election, you know, Ed Miliband was meant to lead that green renewable energy, Great British Energy. Do you remember that plan?
Oh, yeah.
And then that was canned. He lost his kind of like the job that he was obviously hoping to do, and that was canned. And it's sort of like, well, if you're getting rid of that, then what are you actually meant to be doing? You got rid of that, but instead, you know, nationalised energy that we could all have been a part of that was renewable, but instead you've decided to focus on electric tanks. I'm sorry, you've got it all back to front.
It's like carbon capture. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Nikki Hodgson, pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much. She's a political commentator, hopefully defending some of that, but she's finding it indefensible, which I think a lot of people... I'm struggling to do that. Well, let's welcome my panel again, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and political commentator Susie Stride. Susie Stride, I'm going to come to you. OK, so we talked about EVs on the battlefield. What about the rainbow armbands?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big football fan. I support Tottenham, not there today. Hopefully they're going to beat Chelsea. And I look at this and I think my concern is, I mean, just, you know, reading a little bit into it, I think, you know, exactly what's being said there. I think, obviously, people have got a right to choose what sexuality they are and all of that. But I think, you know, people also have a right to have a faith. And, you know, if you've got Muslim players, if you've got, you know, players of different faiths, Christian, Catholic, whatever, and if for them that impinges on their faith, well, then I don't think they should be forced to...
But why the armband in the first place as a rainbow armband? Why not a plain armband that matches your kit, that has nothing to do with anything, that nobody writes anything on anything, and they just get on with playing the game? Danny?
I'm an Everton fan, and when I go to Goodison Park, if I spend 65, 70 nicker to see the Toffees play, I don't want to be, if you like... I just want to see Everton lose. That's all I want. I want to see Everton kick a ball for 90 minutes and probably lose. I don't want to be exposed to this, and it is a political thing. It's not apolitical, it's political. And I think we're at the stage in life where gay people are just part and parcel of our fabric. I mean, I don't think, 39,000 people at Goodison Park are going to be affected by seeing players wearing the rainbow armband or the rainbow laces. And I think also the footballers won't like it. I'd love a footballer, besides this Muslim guy, the Ipswich Town captain, a Muslim guy. I'd love a Christian guy. I wonder whether Ipswich Town would have been so defensive, because I remember Ipswich Town saying, whilst we understand the inclusivity and the rainbow this and rainbow that, we also respect this guy's faith and everything. Imagine if it was a Christian guy. I wonder whether Ipswich Town would have been so forthright in their support, because they were caught between a rock and a hard place. Do we upset a Muslim or do we upset the gay community?
Or do we not use any of this and just
don't use it?
Don't use it. I don't understand why these politicians are obsessed, sport is obsessed with telling people about what sexuality someone is. I don't care. It's none of my business.
Yeah.
It's none of my business if someone is straight or gay or whether they're trans. It's actually none of my business. I just don't want it to be brought into things that are not relevant. Like, why?
It's football.
It's football. It's a game of football. So what's what you do in the bedroom or who you fancy or where you lean to? What's that got to do with winning a football game?
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I mean, interestingly, I think there was a Christian player who did...
But he wrote I Love Jesus on it. He didn't take his armband off. And I think there's a difference.
Yeah. But again, I don't care what religion you are. It's football. Just play the game.
Yeah, and I think that is the thing, isn't it? It's the point for me where people can say, oh, it's all right for this. But then I'm like, well... then, if we believe in that, then we have to believe that actually then everyone has to be respected and you can't respect it, and then you can't then be kind of impinging on different people.
But you're not. You're playing a game of football. The rules of the game are this. It's like the rules of this debate are if you talk over me, you're out. So the rules of the game, that's the rules of the game. Everything has its certain rules, and the rules of the game are the game you play to win, and that's it. There shouldn't be all this other stuff that's coming in that has nothing to do with the sport itself. And I just find it ridiculous that people are up in arms about, oh, you have to wear this armband, oh, you've written this. Just get on with playing the game. Who cares?
I feel like, back in the day when I was a kid, there was a lot of, stop racism in football. And I think that was a genuine problem, and also it was a genuine problem. I'm talking about back in the 90s.
Yeah, it was a problem.
There was a genuine problem also that outplayed itself in football, because you would get racism, and I used to go, you'd hear it, and a campaign like that, I think, is very different.
In some ways,
I feel like with something like this, we're starting a fire, there's no fire.
Are you talking about taking the knees?
No, taking the knee was a more recent thing.
In the 90s.
No, but I'm just wondering if you're sort of alluding to the fact that it's not there. Listen, I think there is levels of racism still in the sport.
Of course there is.
But what I think that there is, it's the FA and UEFA and these organisations who could take control of that, but they don't. They allow the players to come down on the knee and take the pressure for it. And I think that's wrong. These are big organisations that could wipe this out immediately by telling people, if you say that on the stands, you're off. We will find you. And they've got the technology to do it. They just don't. And they could. So I don't think it's not the players' responsibility. It's the FA, the UEFA, and their responsibility to make the players safe.
Watching Camilla's show this morning on GB News, and she interviewed a Newcastle United fan, a woman, who'd been banned from going to see Newcastle United because of her social media views. And this was a gay woman about transgender issues, and she was banned. And this wasn't in connection with the Newcastle United blog on social media. It was just a Geordie, a woman, a gay woman, a fan. She's got certain issues with men can't become women and women can't become men. And Newcastle United banned her because
that's just silly. Again, that's just silly. That's, she hasn't, it's true. She's right. Susie's trying. Danny Kelly, thank you very much for joining me. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Coming up, the next Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you trust Labour to transform the NHS?
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Well, drinkers have been warned about a drop in the quality of French wines after poor weather conditions hit this year's grape harvest. Winemakers across France will make 240 million fewer bottles of wine this year, the country's farming ministry said on Tuesday. So should we think of switching from French to English? I'm joined now by sommelier and founder of Inflorescence Wines, Jacinta Madison Williams. Hello, Jacinta.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. First of all, let's just think about the poor French.
We should.
Has this been a fairly universal weather catastrophe for France?
It has. Kind of across the board, we're about 22% down on last year's crops, which is quite significant. I think it's like one of the 4 years over the last century that have been this low. So,
and it's affected both quality and quantity?
I would say more so quantity. There's always ways of counteracting quality. It depends if people are desperate to make wine. They can obviously push out more watered down grapes. There's been a lot of rain, if you hadn't noticed. Not only in France, we felt it here too. But lots of frost, supercell hailstorms have completely wiped out some crops. So in some cases, there's nothing to make. In other cases, it's just really watered down grapes and you want to pick earlier to make sure you're avoiding all those rains. But I would say more so it's quantity. But saying that, France is still the biggest producer of wine in the world. It might be taken over by Spain this year, but as a consumer, don't panic. We're not going to run out of wine. And we obviously have lots of lovely wine growing here now in England. So whether we do make a little jump for a bit to English wine, but there's definitely still lots out there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, 25 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? You've missed half of the show, but it's fine because we've got another half. So stay with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you trust Labour to transform the NHS? Health Secretary Wes Streeting has pledged to create a transformed health service. They love talking, don't they? In which thousands more GPs could be trained in order to deal with the NHS's staffing crisis. But is this really the solution to solving the current difficulties that are facing it? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you trust Labour to transform the NHS? Do you trust what Wes Streeting is saying? Joining me now, political commentator Susie Stride and broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Danny Kelly, I will start with you.
Well, I don't trust Labour, no. They've given me nothing to trust them about. I hope they succeed. Of course, I want a better NHS. I hope this Labour administration really do succeed. I'm not ideologically intransigent where it's almost like a tribal nature. I just don't like them, so I don't want them in power. I want them to be a success. Now, is Wes Streeting, if he's going to train up thousands of GPs, good luck to the lad. I hope that he does. Are there thousands? Bearing in mind they've only got another 4.5 years. So if he's going to train up thousands of GPs, where I'm assuming he's already earmarked them at some sort of medical school, because it doesn't take... probably takes more than 4.5 years to become a GP.
Oh, it does, yeah. So
where are they? I'm sure that he wouldn't make an announcement without... Oh, maybe he would make an announcement.
Well, they all...
Not knowing if he could do it or not. Well, I don't know. But I don't trust him because they've given me nothing to trust him.
Well, he's trying to say that it's a 10-year thing and... It's like, you're not getting 2 terms, my friend. You've got 5.
No, I don't think they
You better make a difference then. If you don't, then you won't be re-elected. Susie Stride.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think when we talk about how do we trust them? For me, I look back to when I was a teenager and what the NHS looked like in 1997 as a 15-year-old kid, and the transformation. There's no other word for it. I mean, I've got lots of doctors in my family, I've got friends, midwives, nurses, not political. These people just aren't political, they don't care. But when they say, this is what happened, waiting lists came down, we had the resources, we had the investment in the GP clinics in the communities, they were rebuilt, we had, the support that we needed. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, the last Labour government got everything right, they didn't, but on the NHS, it was that record waiting list coming down, obviously, which have shot up in the last 10 years. Anyway, coming to this Labour government, I think, ultimately, the challenge is huge. And I think the really big thing, which I think is encouraging, is you've got Alan Milburn, who obviously former minister, and you've got Wes Streeting. And what they're not saying is this is all about just pumping loads of money in. They are saying there's got to be reform. There has got to be. It can't just be we're going to just pump loads of money.
Well, they talk a good game, but I mean, Sir Keir Starmer's record does show that he really. Well, I don't think he can be trusted for his pledges because after just 5 months in office, he felt it necessary to have a reset for his plans in government. So it's kind of like they've failed with what they said they would do, and they're doing stuff that they didn't say they were going to do, and now they're having a reset to remind you of what they're planning to do. And he came up with these 6 milestones or millstones, whichever way you want to look at it, and these missions and foundations and 7 pillars for growth and all this nonsense, or lots of words. It's always worse.
And also, there's been a population explosion since 1997 with Tony Blair. And we mustn't forget that Tony Blair, when, for example, I think it was Poland, when they were welcomed into the European Union, I think Germany and France put caps on the amount of people that would emigrate, but Tony Blair and Gordon Brown didn't. And they estimated that, I think, 40 or 50,000 Poles would turn up. And I think it was close to 1 million. Yeah. And we've had a population explosion. And it's very easy. I mean, Susie, I'm just grateful you haven't said 14 years of Tory, cock-ups, because that's been trotted out so much. At some point, it's got to stop. And I was on with you a couple of weeks ago. You never said it then, which is great. But, you
might say it now.
No, I don't think...
It might come out.
Well, it might come out, but it hasn't so far. And the Tories, they've had to deal with a population explosion, ever-expanding population, and, people getting ill and people living longer, and this all costs a load of dough.
And Brexit, which I think they executed with Neolithic incompetence. But let's have a look at some of the pledges that Sir Keir Starmer had during his campaign. Elected Labour leader 2020, he pledged to increase income tax for the top 5 earners. He didn't do it. He said that he would abolish universal credit. He didn't do that either. He said that he would introduce common ownership of rail, mail, energy and water. Pledge has obviously been broken there. And he said he would support the abolition of tuition fees. Again, broken. So, and that's just some of them, and I've got a list of them here. Immigration targets, well, I don't even think he doesn't warrant a number, does it? He's not going to dare with that one. And instead, we just got the promise of simply reducing immigration, legal and illegal. So I don't know whether we can now trust them on the NHS as well, but we'll see. What do you think? gbnews.com/you'll say. But during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we're hearing from church ministers across the country, and each day they have a special message for you to celebrate that festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 8.
Advent is a time of waiting in anticipation to celebrate an extraordinary event that took place just over 2,000 years ago. Waiting in anticipation is something we do often in life. Maybe we're waiting to enjoy the holiday we've been saving up for, or waiting for that email to come through telling us we've been successful in our job application, or waiting to open up the Christmas presents come Christmas Day. The stronger our wanting and longing, the greater the intensity of our anticipating and waiting. Which raises a question: do you know what you most want and long for? In a world full of marketing and social media influencers shaping our every desire and telling us what we should have, what we need to have, and what we are to experience and how we are to live, do we know what we truly want? Have we lost the ability to know the deepest longings of our hearts? As we approach the celebration of Christmas, we're reminded that Jesus Christ came down to earth as God in the flesh. It reminds us that the human soul belongs to God and was created for God, to enjoy God now and forever when Jesus returns. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
So nice. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? I would like to see more of the church there, because I like to see these beautiful buildings. But anyway, you can see all our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by visiting gbnews.com/Advent. Merry Christmas, it's all coming up. But right now, on the way, the Great British Debate, I'm asking, should there be a law to force politicians to answer questions? But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. It's 4:32. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Bashar Assad's barbaric regime in Syria as he calls for a restoration of peace and stability. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. Here, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. Meanwhile, in the US, President Joe Biden is set to meet with his national security team in the coming hours for an update on the situation. Strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Travel is heavily disrupted, train services are delayed and the Severn Bridge remains closed. 200,000 homes are still without electricity after the storm brought 93-mile-an-hour winds on Saturday. In other news, the leader of Edinburgh City Council has been suspended by the Labour Party after claims he sent inappropriate sexual messages to Ukrainian refugees, including through a dating app. Police are now investigating a report of Cammy Day's behaviour made through the council's whistleblowing service. Opposition leaders, including from the SNP, are calling for his immediate resignation, describing the allegations as beyond shocking. The leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, says the claims are deeply distressing and insists the party acted swiftly when alerted on Saturday. Mr Day, who denies any contact from police, has not commented on the allegations. Now, a march against anti-Semitism is taking place in London today, with demonstrators gathering outside the High Court. The route will pass through Westminster and Whitehall, ending with a rally at Parliament Square. It follows a reported quadrupling of anti-Semitic hate crimes over the past year, making Jewish people the UK's most targeted minority faith group. The rise is linked to the Hamas attacks on Israel in October and the subsequent strikes on Gaza. And the Prince of Wales has been helping serve Christmas lunch at a homeless shelter run by a charity that he was introduced to by his mother. William wore one of the Passage charity's aprons as he joined the long line of volunteers serving food while chatting with attendees on Thursday. He first visited the London-based homelessness charity more than 30 years ago with his late mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara will be clearing its way southeastwards with the winds slowly easing before higher pressure starts building into the week. So this is the storm that will gradually clear its way southeastwards, but we still have a real squeeze in those isobars, so indicating some strong winds. So through this evening, it's going to be a damp evening across the central parts of England and the southeast with outbreaks of rain. Further towards the north, though, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, here we'll hold on to the clearest skies, and that will allow temperatures to fall underneath the light winds. So here we could wake up to a touch of frost. Further towards the south, still breezy, especially across the English Channel, with lows around 6 or 7 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is going to be a cold start across Scotland with a frost in places, but also perhaps some freezing fog. That's a similar picture across Northern Ireland as well. Bright skies to start, but with a touch of frost. Further across England and Wales, a lot of clouds still around with some showery outbreaks of rain just coming in towards the south and east. It is still going to be breezy, especially along the south, but light winds further towards the north, and towards the north, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine through Monday. Further south, though, we will still hold on to a lot of cloud, but it will be a lot drier than what we've seen over the weekend with a few showers on and off. Otherwise, a cold feeling day across the north underneath the clearest skies, but further towards the south, highs of up to 9 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, a lot of clouds still focus across much of England and Wales, with some outbreaks of showery rain, but clearer skies further towards the north with a dip in temperatures. But we hold on to higher pressure as we go through the week, but it is still going to be quite cloudy at times. Bye-bye.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 38 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you just tuned in, this is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget as well, you can go to YouTube and stream the show live, or don't forget to check out my monologue as well. I've got that on YouTube and on TikTok. But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should there be a law to force politicians to answer questions? Have a listen to Angela Rayner failing to answer a question on the BBC earlier this week.
Name a company, a few of them, that have welcomed these proposals.
Well, we've worked with many of the companies. I've worked with so many of them on this. I've had many roundtables, as the business secretary, and they've very much welcomed the work that we've been doing on making sure that people...
You must be able to name a few, because I can name all the companies, the recruitment companies, Hayes, Manpower, Randstad. They've signed the letter saying this is the wrong approach. You're going to put jobs at risk. Which are the companies that have welcomed your employment rights?
Well, like I say, I've spoke to many companies. We've had many roundtables with them and we've been discussing it, and they've acknowledged that there has to be a balance and broadly welcomed it. We've made changes as opposed to, for example, on the probation periods when we listened to what business said. So we have the probation periods as well alongside the balance of rights from day one.
Will you get me a list of those companies and then we can call them and say, do you welcome Angela Rayner's proposals?
Well, there's been many of the companies that we've worked with, like I say, so many of them.
See, just remain. See, this is what we're dealing with. I mean, this is what we're genuinely dealing with. They think that we're stupid and that you're not going to answer the question, but you use the word many and then you don't have to explain yourself. I'm afraid you do, Angela, and I would like an answer. I'm sure everyone on the panel and the people at home and even those who voted for you would like an answer as to which companies. So we will wait with bated breath for that, which is why, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should there be a law to force these people to answer questions? Joining me now is political commentator Susie Stride and broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Susie Stride, that was painful watching that. Do you think we're stupid?
I think, look, this is something that I would say almost all politicians struggle with. It's across the board, Lib Dem, Tory, Green, Labour, it's all of them.
Agreed.
I think, unfortunately, social media and the age that we're in has made it even worse, because you can say one line wrong, one off the whatever, and then it could go viral. And so I think
but it's a simple question.
So I think people have that bit. Yeah, and I think that the problem there is that sometimes I remember once
you didn't have any.
Do you remember when Ed Miliband was once asked a question about 8 different times about the trade unions, and he kept answering it the same way. Now listen, Ed Miliband is a highly intelligent individual. Since he's not leader...
He's not so clever.
Since he's not leader...
He isn't. I'm sorry,
he's not
you
leader,
can't get away with saying that.
His personality has come back up, which gives out that pressure has lifted. But I think it is a problem, and I think, do you know what? We have this problem in this country where more and more the general public feel that they don't trust their leaders, they don't trust politicians, and they don't trust them because there's this lack of authenticity.
But she's putting in a policy that will affect the way that people are are employed and recruitment and national insurance hikes and minimum wage and all this stuff that's going through. And she's been asked a question from a statement that she made saying that she's been talking to business people who are happy and pleased with her policy, and she will not answer who they are. That's the problem.
That was so frustrating. All she had to do was give the journalist a couple of business names.
She didn't have
she wasn't being asked for future policy adjustments or future policy ideas. She was just being asked, OK, so there are companies who are behind you. OK, who are they? That's all she had to say. Now, your question is, should there be a law? I think
force them to just... Not loads of them did.
I think that there should be a political equivalent of a Hippocratic oath, where physicians, doctors, they take an oath of ethics. And I think politicians, you know, because when at the start of Parliament, they have to, I think, put their hand on the Bible or the whichever religious book, whatever, and say, I swear, whatever. It should also say, if we're going to develop your thought for a second, they should also say, and I promise that I'm going to be direct and straight with people when they ask me simple, straightforward questions. That is my pledge, that I am going to do my best to answer a simple question directly.
Because they've got such a large majority. So it's, you know, and like I said, it's not just her. A lot of them doing it. Some of the reason why people like Nigel Farage and other politicians of his nature, like Lee Anderson, because they answer questions. So whatever party they're from, if you answer Donald Trump, another one, he answers the question. Whether you love or hate him, he answers the question. So I don't think that these politicians should be allowed to get away with this, because they are making policies that affect all of us, and she's justifying her business policy by saying that there are businesses who agree with her. So I think it's a perfectly decent question that she's been asked, and she doesn't answer it.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I mean, I know. Look, I'm a big fan of Angela Rayner. I know her personally. She's absolutely, honestly, genuinely a lovely person. I also think she's actually.
Yeah, so what?
No, but I also think she's an example of someone who has literally come from less than nothing.
So what?
And no, wait a second. And it's fought to be where she is. I genuinely think she cares about people, and I do think she's a strong leader. In that moment, I don't think she did a very good job clearly at answering the question. But as I said, this is a bigger problem in our country. It's not just about Angela Rayner. It's a bigger problem in our country. And you know, we do want to. You know, and I don't know how we create that environment where people feel like they can be authentic. You've just pointed out, yes, people like Nigel Farage and others just say it as
they
it
answer
is,
the questions.
and people like that. And I think it is important, this thing of authenticity. At the same time, as someone who, in the future, I want to run for Parliament, I understand that possibly when I'm in that position, I would feel less free, because I'd be like, well, if I say the wrong thing,
but Susie,
have a million people tweeting about
this isn't about saying the wrong thing. This is not where she's used the wrong word and people have jumped on it. This is a direct question asking her which businesses support her policies. She has put down policies. Businesses all over the country are saying it's the wrong thing. And the journalist there, I think it was Sophie Bridge there, she was able to give answers to Angela, and Angela couldn't do it. And that's the thing. It's direct questions like that. Not that they've said the wrong thing. Or this, and if you're going to make policies and you're in charge, well, I'll be coming back to you, Danny, but it shows nothing without you and your... It was Joe Coburn. Sorry, it was Joe Coburn there from the BBC. So this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome some of our great British voices onto the show. Their opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. David Balm in Watford. David, you heard Angela there. Yeah.
All I'm going to say, in 1997, a film came out starring Jim Carrey called Liar, Liar. And he couldn't lie for 24 hours or whatever it was. No politician has, in the history of politics, has ever wanted to own up and admit to anything because it doesn't suit their purpose. Michael Howard, Jeremy Paxman humbled him for some details when he was the Justice Minister about the leader of prisons. And he got castigated by Labour. Can't tell, you cannot answer. It's great when you're opposition. You can name whoever you like, but they're scared witless. The moment they say, let's say BP or BT, support them, they are scared witless that BT will turn around and say, actually, we never agreed with her. She's a liar. And they can't say it. But I think we should make it mandatory that if you are asked a question by a journalist, a legitimate journalist, to name people or name X, Y, Z, you must name them. Name your source.
Yeah, I think because you can't, you're making policies, you're saying that the reason you're doing this is because you've got the support of certain people, and you can't name anybody that will support you, and you're using the word many. She even had a little laugh in there as well. And it's like,
when I
this
was
isn't funny.
when I was running a collection agency, years ago. I would quote, say, another agency, another, say, housing association who was using our services. I had to be able to back up what we did. Who are you using? What are you doing? And I had to give that. Otherwise, I would be laughed out the room. And this is even worse. You have to be able to, if you want credibility and believability, stop being a shouty person and start actually talking and treating people with respect that they deserve.
Absolutely, David. We're running out of time. Really good to talk to you. Couldn't agree more. But those two things above your head make it look like you're wearing a red and blue ears.
Mickey Mouse hat.
You've got a Mickey Mouse hat on. You've positioned yourself perfectly. That is David Bartley's that great British voice. But welcome. 47 after 4. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up in the next hour, my great British debate. I'm asking, are Labour making a mess of everything?
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
I know, it's a reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very humble guy.
Surprise. No, I was just
really
in touch with reality. Yeah, no, I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog.
Yeah, it did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength. I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know.
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But yeah, I would say, I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody,
all over the place, don't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, it's time for World Travel over the States and speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge. Paul Dudridge, what's happening? Kamala Harris, the campaign, is still asking for donations. It's over. Has nobody told them?
Yeah, but the bills are still coming in. I think they spent $1.5 billion on this campaign, and they're still $20 million in debt. And so the begging letters are still going out. And it's great. There's a kind of like, there's a wonderful expression that they're using, and it's like, I know the campaign didn't go the way we wanted it to, but there's still a fight to go on, etc. They're using lovely temperate language about the fact that, yeah, these were the people that wanted to run the country 4 weeks ago, and they spent $1.5 billion to be trounced by a guy. I think the whole Trump campaign cost about 400 million, 500. It's like $500 million. So yes, they are still campaigning for funds. Isn't that a wonderful
honestly,
thing? And
ridiculous.
so
What about?
it's amazing.
What about Hunter Biden? Because Joe Biden said he wouldn't pardon Hunter, and he has now, and he's considering other preemptive pardons for Trump critics.
It's so good. It's just so good. So in typical Biden fashion, he could have months ago, as you say, he said he wouldn't pardon him. He could have months ago just gone, there are no plans to pardon Hunter. And then he could have done it. But he didn't. He said, no. And his press secretary, no. Now it's yes, the gloves are off. Trump has now, he just gave an interview, which is going out tonight, NBC. He's just given an interview where he's unequivocally said on day one, he is now pardoning the January the 6th protester rioters who've been held in, about 500 of them have been held in prisons for the last 3-4 years. And so this now gives him license. Most presidents pardon on the way out of office. Now Hunter has been pardoned. It means that Trump can do a big pardoning round on day one. January the 6th, he's now unequivocally said in today's interview that he's pardoning them on day one. But there's going to be other people like Julian Assange can be pardoned. I mean, he had to plead guilty to be able to get released. Looks like he's going to get pardoned. There's a load of other influencers and broadcasters and journalists and people that have tried bringing the stories to the public who have fallen foul of like the guy who created Telegram and stuff. They are all looking like they're going to get pardoned on day one. So it's a very exciting time, and it's been possible because of the good graces of Joe Biden's loyalty to his errant son.
Yeah, well, that he did open the door. And very briefly, the Democrats, Trump sabotage is underway. They've already started, apparently, polling for the next potential election in 2020. When would that be? 2028 or something? Yeah.
2028. Yeah. We just had this big, I'm in Los Angeles, Beverly Hilton this week. All the Democrat governors had a 2-day conference, and basically they're all jostling for position to be the candidate. Basically, the campaigning, you think the election's over, you had like a 2-week rest. The campaign for 2028 is underway. The Democrats are jostling for position whilst meeting to see how they can scupper the Trump administration. So we had all the Democrat governors here in Los Angeles this weekend, and what a treat that was. But yes, they're all jockeying now to be the candidate.
Cracky. Paul Dudred, thank you very much, host of the Politics People podcast. Check him out there. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Plenty more still to come, including my interview with former Strictly Come Dancing star Christina Rial.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara will be clearing its way southeastwards with the winds slowly easing before higher pressure starts building into the week. So this is the storm that will gradually clear its way southeastwards, but we still have a real squeeze in those isobars, so indicating some strong winds. So through this evening, it's going to be a damp evening across the central parts of England and the southeast with outbreaks of rain. Further towards the north, though, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, here we'll hold on to the clearest skies, and that will allow temperatures to fall underneath the light winds. So here we could wake up to a touch of frost. Further towards the south, still breezy, especially across the English Channel, with lows around 6 or 7 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is going to be a cold start across Scotland with a frost in places, but also perhaps some freezing fog. That's a similar picture across Northern Ireland as well. Bright skies to start, but with a touch of frost. Further across England and Wales, a lot of clouds still around with some showery outbreaks of rain just coming in towards the south and east. It is still going to be breezy, especially along the south, but light winds further towards the north, and towards the north, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine through Monday. Further south, though, we will still hold on to a lot of cloud, but it will be a lot drier than what we've seen over the weekend, with a few showers on and off. Otherwise, a cold feeling day across the north underneath the clearest skies, but further towards the south, highs of up to 9 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, a lot of clouds still focus across much of England and Wales, with some outbreaks of showery rain, but clearer skies further towards the north with a dip in temperatures. But we hold on to higher pressure as we go through the week, but it is still going to be quite cloudy at times. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me in the next hour, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also political commentator Susie Stride. Coming up, of course, in the Great British Debate in the earlier hour, I was asking about Assad, who's fled Syria, and whether it is a good thing. Russia has confirmed that the Syrian president resigned and fled Syria early on this morning, following a lightning offensive by the jihadist-led opposition forces, who quickly seized the multiple cities in the country with little resistance. But is this a good thing for the UK? I've got a pull up on X asking you that very question. And in the interview, joining me, former Strictly Come Dancing star Christina, who's joined a special campaign to help tackle the issue of incontinence using her yoga expertise. That is coming up very shortly. And should politicians be forced by law to answer questions? Have a listen to Angela Rayner on the BBC earlier this week.
Can you name a company, a few of them, that have welcomed these proposals?
Well, we've worked with many of the companies. I've worked with so many of them on this. I've had many roundtables, as has the business secretary.
Yes, that was Jo Coburn asking her a question, but Angela unfortunately didn't appear to be giving a decent, succinct answer. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Bashar Assad's barbaric regime in Syria as he calls for the restoration of peace and stability. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. Here, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. Meanwhile, in the US, President Joe Biden is set to meet with his national security team in the coming hours for an update on the situation. Strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Travel is heavily disrupted, train services are delayed and the Severn Bridge remains closed. 200,000 homes are still without electricity after the storm brought 93-mile-an-hour winds on Saturday. In other news, the leader of Edinburgh City Council has been suspended by the Labour Party after claims he sent inappropriate sexual messages to Ukrainian refugees, including through a dating app. Police are now investigating a report of Cammy Day's behaviour made through the council's whistleblowing service. Opposition leaders, including from the SNP, are calling for his immediate resignation, describing the allegations as beyond shocking. The leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, says the claims are deeply distressing and insists the party acted swiftly when alerted on Saturday. Mr Day, who denies any contact from police, has not commented on the allegations. Now, a march against anti-Semitism is taking place in London today, with demonstrators gathering outside the High Court. The route passes through Westminster and Whitehall, ending with a rally at Parliament Square. It follows a reported quadrupling of anti-Semitic hate crimes over the past year, making Jewish people the UK's most targeted minority faith group. The rise is linked to the Hamas attacks on Israel in October and the subsequent strikes on Gaza. The UK exported over 8,000 tonnes of banned pesticides in 2023, including enough bee-killing chemicals to spray an area bigger than England. An investigation by Greenpeace revealed that 98% of these exports were linked to Syngenta, which manufactures the pesticides in Huddersfield. Campaigners say toxic products like Diquat, banned in the UK since 2018, are being sold to countries with weaker regulations, fueling health and environmental risks. The government insists it requires importing countries' consent and complies with global standards, but critics are calling for a total export ban to align with European restrictions. More than 1.6 million people have signed a Greenpeace petition demanding urgent action. Police in New York have released new images in the hunt for the gunman who shot dead United Healthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson in what's believed to have been a targeted assassination. The suspect, seen wearing a hood and a face mask, fled on a bike after the killing, leaving behind a backpack containing a Monopoly board and a designer jacket. Investigators are also examining bullet casings marked with the words deny, defend and depose, potentially linking the attack to critics of private health insurance. The FBI has put up a $50,000 reward as the killer is thought to have escaped the state, possibly boarding a bus in Atlanta. New York Mayor Eric Adams insists the net is tightening, with cutting-edge facial recognition tech leading the chase. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prince of Wales has been helping serve Christmas lunch at a homeless shelter run by a charity that he was introduced to by his mother. William wore one of the Passage Charity's aprons as he joined the long line of volunteers serving food while chatting with attendees on Thursday. He first visited the London-based homelessness charity more than 30 years ago with his mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It's 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, I'll get you the latest from Syria as President Bashar al-Assad has fled following a takeover from rebel forces. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said that he welcomes the fall of Bashar al-Assad's barbaric regime. He's called for the restoration of peace and stability. In the interview on the way, I'll be speaking with former Strictly Come Dancing star Christina, who has been joined a special campaign to help tackle the issue of incontinence using her dancing and yoga expertise. That is in the interview just after 5. Then for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Labour making a mess of everything after yet another private school announces a closure, blaming Labour's VAT raid as the reason? Do you think that really it's now time for them to reverse it? Are they literally making a hash of absolutely everything they touch? Send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/you'll say. So, what do you think? Prime Minister Keir Starmer says that the UK welcomes the fall of Bashar al-Assad's barbaric regime in Syria. He's called for peace and stability in the country after rebels claimed the capital of Damascus and ended 24 years of authoritarian rule. Syrians across the globe are celebrating the news, with many refugees returning to the country. So I wonder if this is a good thing for Britain. Well, joining me now, former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman. Hello, Chip Chapman. Thank you very much for joining me. I want to ask, OK, so is this a good thing for Britain? The potential new regime, they're rebels, they were linked with ISIS. Are we really ending up out of the frying pan into the fire?
I don't think we are going into the frying pan and into the fire. I think it is a good thing. And you have to separate a number of things. So there were 3 groups who were really involved in this sort of liberation. The first is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Now, to link them with IS would be the wrong thing to do. For IS, for example, call them apostate and Sahawat, which is a treacherous Sunni faction. Indeed, in their last weekly publication, Al-Naba, they stated that HTS is not a jihadist group. So to link HTS and the liberation, their part in it, with a jihadist group would be wrong. They are Islamists, but they're moderates, they're Salafists, and they're jihadists. They're not jihadists. The second group involved was the Syrian National Army. That's a coalition involving the Free Syrian Army, which included lots of deserters from the Syrian army over time, another Islamist group called Tahrir al-Sham, and largely backed by the Turks. And the third in the south, where it all kicked off in Syria, is Dara. That was really run by the Druze and the Christians. So you have a miscellany of groups, and there always have been a miscellany of groups. The key thing is, it's a good thing that Assad is gone. What happens the day after? At the moment, the accommodationist sort of language of Gilani, who's the HTS leader, has been very inclusive. It's not been exclusive at all. So how that organisation reacts to society would seem to suggest at the moment that he's inclusive of the Druze, the Christians, and even the Alawite, of which the Assad's regime were Alawites, which were the Shia and only 11% of the population.
OK, so that's a nice sort of... gives us a good... It makes me feel quite hopeful that this will be a nice regime and that the people in Syria can have some peace. There's also... apparently people are now going back to Syria. I mean, it's been early days, but this is what has been reported, that people with many refugees are returning to the country. And that again, is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And again, one of the objectives, I think, from the Turkish side was they've hosted 3 million Syrian refugees over the past few years, and have also been refugees, of course, in Jordan and in Lebanon, as well as those who've dispersed all over Europe. And I'm sure we've got quite a few in the UK. So if you've got this pull back, that is a good thing. And So the opposition types who actually powered this were not just three groups that I mentioned before, but the opposition throughout this entire 14-year period, really, because this all came out of the Arab Spring, and initially in 2010 with the big mallet from Assad coming in 2011, included HR, human rights activists, urban intellectuals, Kurds, the Islamists, armed militias, and the poor and dispossessed. And it's the poor and dispossessed who want to go back. And they're the ones you've largely seen on the TV. People want to have a reclaimed Syria, and that is a good thing.
That is good, isn't it? Because you don't often see it that way around. We had Uri Geller speaking to us earlier, and of course Israel borders Syria, and he was saying that they're all very pleased as well that this regime is ended. You mentioned earlier, though, that where will they start with everything now, in your view? What's the next thing to do? Because obviously they've now got to form some sort of government or some sort of order.
Yeah, well, this will progress in two ways. Firstly, at the speed of governments, and secondly, at the speed of diplomacy. If you look at the speed of diplomacy first, there is a UN Security Council Resolution 2254 from 2015, which does have a roadmap for an inclusive Syria in the future. That's laid out, and that could be the diplomatic start point. In terms of the speed of governance, there have already been decentralized models which have been used before, and indeed in the north with Idlib, where Jilani was, there was a Syrian Salvation Government. We've also had in the Kurdish region the autonomous administration of North and East Syria, Rojava so-called, and that could be a model, but there's lots of different models: a decentralized light model, an institutionalized local control model, a devolved federalism. So there's lots of things to play for in the way that it will happen in the future. If he's going to be inclusive, he needs that decentralization so that all ethnic, religious, sectarian diversity is reflected within Syria as it should be for the future, not this very partial and sectarian Alawite regime of Assad's, which was just using a mallet for the last 54 years of both his rule and his father's rule.
And there are rumours that Assad has fled to Russia, but somebody also said that there's another rumour that his plane was on radar and then disappeared off radar. So what do we know about where he might be, or what have you heard?
I think you can take that thing that it went off the radar with a bit of a pinch of salt in terms of it was quite an old aircraft, so I don't think the transponder sort of side of life gives you enough fidelity to see that. Now, really, I think you have to look at the other sort of key Arab players in this. So it's either the UAE or Qatar or one of those, probably not Russia, although, you know, Russia's let him down. And one of the down arrows, or two down arrows that you can say here, is firstly for Russia, who've overextended themselves and really lost both their influence in the Mediterranean through possibly the loss of their naval base at Tartus, and shown themselves an untrustworthy ally. But the real strategic thing here is this is the greatest strategic setback for Iran since 1979, who've really shown themselves to be a paper tiger. The Shia crescent is gone, no land route to Hezbollah, no way through to support the Hamas. So they really have a strategic setback.
Wow. Fascinating stuff, really. And, you know, we'll watch and see and watch how this transpires. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. That's the former head of counterterrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman. Right now, they're just coming up to 15 minutes after 5 o'clock, and it's time for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway ever this year. Your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash is the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. Here's how.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. That'd be a good Christmas present, wouldn't it? This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up in the interview, I'll be speaking with former Strictly Come Dancing star Christina, who is now part of a special campaign to tackle incontinence. You won't want to miss it.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? The Times. It's so funny the Times did this story because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. What's
that passenger got through, or almost got through, one episode of one James Bond movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink, let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
So expensive. You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years. Yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It is just coming up to 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you just tuned in, welcome. We are GB News, we're Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. And now it's time for this week's interview, which is with former Strictly Come Dancing star Christina, who recently announced a special campaign with Tenor, which offers products to help manage incontinence, an issue which results in uncontrolled leakage of urine. And it is very common. It's a very common problem, very distressing. but which may also have a large impact on the quality of life. Christina, who is part of the campaign, is helping women with their dance moves to improve pelvic floor weakness and wants to break the taboos and help women feel more comfortable. Now, I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined by Christina in off now. Christina, thank you very much for joining me. I know you were going to come in, but the weather has been a nightmare, difficult trains and everything else like that, but it's really good to see you. So most people will know of you initially from Strictly. You've done a lot since then. So take us back to your Strictly Come Dancing days and how you got involved in the show.
I was chosen to be on the show in 2008. I was a competitive dancer and traveled the world, was competing all over the world and dancing professionally. And then it just sort of happened that my partner decided to stop dancing and I went back to teaching for a while. But then one of my actually teachers was already on Dancing with the Stars and asked me to join the live tour of Dancing with the Stars, which is equivalent of Strictly in the US. And then from that tour, I got on Strictly Come Dancing because they were looking for new dancers. And myself and another guy called Brian Fortuna, we both came to the show, tried out, and actually were chosen to be in the cast of 2008. And the rest of history, I'm still here. Very happy to be here, of course. And I wish I was in person with you, Nana, today in your lovely studio. But, you know, trains were cancelled and all that. So, but thank God that we can get online and talk to each other.
Yeah, well, at least we can do that, which is good. Now, you've had lots of the... so you partnered with lots of really great people, Jason Donovan, you had John Sargent, Ben Cohen. Who was your favourite one?
Yeah.
Who was your favourite?
It's tough choice. You put me on the spot here, but I always say it's John Sargent. Whenever I ask that question, I have to say, look, I started my journey with John Sargent. He was a political journalist. I also know he appeared on the show a few months ago on GBNews, talking about all these kind of allegations of Strictly, bullying behind the scenes and stuff. I also talked about his experience in the show. And I must say, John was wonderful because he never was stressed. I think I was more stressed than him. It was, for me, a first experience, to be in front of 13 million people, especially nobody knew me here in this country back then. And, John was wonderful. He was a very kind, a proper English gentleman. And it was such a laugh, to have a sort of wonderful first year with him.
Yeah, because you mentioned it, I wasn't going to, but the bullying there's been a lot of talk about that. When you were on, surely there was none of that there when you were there, or I don't know anything about it. People are just saying things and things happen. But to me, I'm used to somebody going, come on, work hard, that kind of stuff. I'm used to it.
Look, I've commented about it already before. So whatever I say today is not new and nothing different from before. We cannot really comment to what's happening behind closed doors with other pros and celebs because we're never, ever, ever with anyone else, right? But what I would say that during my time on Strictly, we always had cameras with us. We weren't allowed to practice without cameras. And, every single second of the practices were filmed. So if there was something happening, it would have been seen, by the production and by people who is cutting those VT tapes before, each couple appears on the show. So they watch the footage, so something would have been flagged up. So it wasn't known to me. And, obviously I've left the show 9 years ago and I've been on the show for 8 years. And during my 8 years in the show, I can't say that something of that nature was flagged up around me, from the professionals. But I've said it many, many times. I think my generation of dancers had a very different pedigree. We came professional world. We were teaching for many, many years, because this is how we were supporting our own professional careers by teaching and putting that money back on our own development, costumes, travels and lessons with other, obviously teachers. So for us to teach a novice or beginner was not a new thing. It was not a frustrating thing, which can be for perhaps a lot of, newish kind of dancers, on the show because they're still very young and maybe they're not really, oh yeah, hear me going in my dance studio here, teaching adults. Yeah, it's so sweet. Yeah, so I think it's just one of those, when you have to really get, I think, a really good cast and have a good pedigree, of the dancers you hire, because I think it's not just about you being a great dancer. I'm sure they're all wonderful dancers, but the job is to teach novices, and that's the hardest thing. is the most difficult thing, not to get frustrated, to teach and understand how other person, learns and so on. So I think that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Thank you for your take on that. So, Christina, you left the show, and then what happened? I mean, I know you had a baby.
Yeah. The baby, and that kind of changed everything, really.
Yeah.
Since then, he has opened yoga studio and dance studio with Ben, and this is where my daughter also trains all the time. And my dance studio, Bespoke Ballroom, has loads of kids, and I sort of promote competitive ballroom dancing here in Northampton and Midlands because we are kind of a very, very known school now. It's been open for 5 years, raised a lot of wonderful juveniles, kids and juniors as well who compete on open circuit, and I'm very proud of the work I do here with other teachers. But I think the main thing is I really feel like I'm giving back to the society here, to my community here, actually getting the kids into ballroom dancing. And it's something I'm passionate about, always was passionate. I started teaching when I was very young myself. I was nearly 16 and assisting my dance teacher, when I was very, very young. And it's still my passion. I absolutely love it. It gives me lots of joy day in and day out, whatever happening, in the world, when I'm in the dance room with my kids, it's just like everything is just beautiful,
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely.
Another hat I'm wearing is being a yoga teacher, which we discussed with you the other day. So, yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. I love dancing and yoga. People think it's easy. That we did play some clips of you doing some of the moves. People think it's easy. They think you sit there going, oh. It's not. It's really, really difficult for you doing it, but it makes you so strong. It is literally the best fitness discipline I've ever done.
Yes.
So what was the connection with you deciding to be part of this campaign for Tenor?
For Tenor, it is such a wonderful campaign. Once in a lifetime, you can't have some kind of campaign which really, really speaks to you, and I was one of those because when I was approached to do that, there were so many boxes ticked for me. First of all, because, pelvic floor weakness is something I know firsthand, and I'll elaborate on that a bit later, but also because so many women struggle in silence. And as a yoga teacher, as a senior yoga teacher, I'm also qualified in postnatal yoga as pregnancy yoga. Something I did myself when I was pregnant, and I struggled with bladder weakness, pelvic floor weakness afterwards, which really was scary because, for me, obviously, I wanted to get back to dancing, and I had a tour kind of lined up in the future, and I thought, well, how am I going to dance if I don't even feel my core? I can't feel anything at all. That was a really scary thought for someone who knows the body inside out. I'm a professional dancer. I've been, active all my life. But, one of the things, I kind of reminded myself that I've been through a similar process a couple of times in my life because I had 2 benign cysts on my ovaries when I was 21 and then 29. So thankfully, they weren't cancerous ones, but it was laparoscopies and obviously still cutting through the abdomen and so on. And so I had to, that was still during my competitive years and my first year on Strictly. So I still had to recover quite quickly, get my, core back, get my pelvic floor back. So I've kind of been there in a sense, with this process. But obviously after pregnancy, the body is very different. And I'm sure a lot of women can say exactly the same. And we know by statistics from Tenor that 62% of women struggle with pelvic floor bladder weakness, but nobody really speaks out because it seems like a taboo. We don't want to talk about it. We feel embarrassed about that. And I think when the campaign like that came along, I was like, yes, I will definitely come on board because first of all, I've been there. I know how it feels. I also know that there are ways to improve your pelvic floor, improve that problem, and give maybe women hope that actually you don't have to struggle in silence. And I think, it's just really sad that we women always feel that there are things we're struggling with, like perimenopausal, menopausal, sort of hormonal changes or postnatal depression or bladder weakness. And we have to struggle in silence because it seems like a taboo. It seems like it's not appropriate to talk about it, but why? Why? This is our bodies. This is how, we grow older. This is what's happening with us. So why can't we talk about it? So why there is not more talk about it? Thankfully, nowadays we hear more about menopause. issues, right? How it can really affect women, how perimenopausal issues as well, with lack of sleep and all these kind of things. So at least we hear a bit more about it. But, you know, the kind of other weakness, I feel like it's still like, oh, should I say anything? You know, sort of. And it was great because I was asked to do a little dance, which kind of will get women to feel good, you know, about themselves, improve self-esteem, because that's what dancing does. But also, obviously, think about those pelvic floor muscles. We had a wonderful, wonderful lady, Wendy from Amutu system, which is also for all pelvic floor kind of workout. And we kind of incorporated together in that sort of dance, you know, where we can breathe properly, engage pelvic floor, but also have fun with that, you know. And it was wonderful campaign to be part of. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Christina, we're running out of time. So if people want to find out more about what you do in terms of helping women with pelvic floor and also about what you're doing with Tenor, where can they go? Where can they find out more?
They can find me on Instagram, Katie Hanaf. It's a verified account, so they can see me there. And especially my daughter with lots of trophies, because I always post about her dance career. But yeah, if there is any questions, of course, you know, please DM me or just go to Tenor. And there is also a lot of support and great kind of, you know, ideas how to help with that. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina Rianoff. That's Christina Rianoff for joining us live. Right, well, 31 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we will continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Labour making a mess of everything? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Danny Kelly and Susie Stride. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. It's 5:32. These are your headlines. The Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Bashar Assad's barbaric regime in Syria as he calls for restoration of peace and stability. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. Here, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. Meanwhile, in the US, President Joe Biden is set to meet with his national security team in the coming hours for an update on the situation. Strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place, with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Travel is heavily disrupted, train services are delayed and the Severn Bridge remains closed. 200,000 homes are still without electricity after the storm brought 93-mile-an-hour winds yesterday. The leader of Edinburgh City Council has been suspended by the Labour Party after claims he sent inappropriate sexual messages to Ukrainian refugees, including through a dating app. Police are now investigating a report of Cammy Day's behaviour made through the council's whistleblowing service. Opposition leaders, including from the SNP, are calling for his immediate resignation, describing the allegations as beyond shocking. The leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, says the claims are deeply distressing and insists the party acted swiftly when alerted on Saturday. Mr Day, who denies any contact from police, has not commented on the allegations. In other news now, a march against anti-Semitism is taking place in London today, with demonstrators gathering outside the High Court. The route passes through Westminster and Whitehall, ending with a rally at Parliament Square. It follows a reported quadrupling of anti-Semitic hate crimes over the past year, making Jewish people the UK's most targeted minority faith group. The rise is linked to the Hamas attacks on Israel in October and the subsequent strikes on Gaza. And the Prince of Wales has been helping serve Christmas lunch at a homelessness shelter run by a charity that he was introduced to by his late mother. William wore one of the Passage charity's aprons as he joined the long line of volunteers serving food while chatting with attendees on Thursday. He first visited the London-based homelessness charity more than 30 years ago with his late mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara will be clearing its way southeastwards with the winds slowly easing before higher pressure starts building into the week. So this is the storm that will gradually clear its way southeastwards, but we still have a real squeeze in those isobars, so indicating some strong winds. So through this evening, it's going to be a damp evening across the central parts of England and the southeast with outbreaks of rain. Further towards the north, though, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, here we'll hold on to the clearest skies, and that will allow temperatures to fall underneath the light winds. So here we could wake up to a touch of frost. Further towards the south, still breezy, especially across the English Channel, with lows around 6 or 7 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is going to be a cold start across Scotland with a frost in places, but also perhaps some freezing fog. That's a similar picture across Northern Ireland as well. Bright skies to start, but with a touch of frost. Further across England and Wales, a lot of clouds still around with some showery outbreaks of rain just coming in towards the south and east. It is still going to be breezy, especially along the south, but light winds further towards the north, and towards the north, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine through Monday. Further south, though, we will still hold on to a lot of cloud, but it will be a lot drier than what we've seen over the weekend, with a few showers on and off. Otherwise, a cold feeling day across the north underneath the clearest skies, but further towards the south, highs of up to 9 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, a lot of clouds still focus across much of England and Wales, with some outbreaks of showery rain, but clearest skies further towards the north with a dip in temperatures. But we hold on to higher pressure as we go through the week, but it is still going to be quite cloudy at times. Bye-bye.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's only 21 minutes to go. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are Labour making a mess of everything? Well, another private school has announced that it is closing its doors and blames Labour's VAT raid for this. Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire. It is actually the preschool to the, not the preschool, but the sort of primary school type thing that they've had to do. They've launched a consultation into plans to shut its prep school at the end of the academic year, saying financial pressures are being felt by the independent schools, and that's what they're blaming. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Labour making a mess of absolutely everything? Well, joining me now, political commentator Susie Stride, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Susie, I will start with you because you're hot in education, so am I, but I know you are. This VAT raid on private schools, is this really to destroying something but to supposedly protect another thing, but it's not really working?
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoken about this before, and I think for me there's a few things. That I understand parents wanting to send their kids to private school, maybe if got a kid that's been bullied or a kid that's special educational needs, and I have compassion on some of those grounds. But ultimately, a lot of people would class private schools as a luxury. It's not.
So what though?
So with that, should it be open to having, you know, a tax exemption? And you
it's
know,
not. A lot of people say that, but it's not really a tax exemption at all. So you're not being exempted from tax. You're just not being charged VAT on the private school because some of them have charitable status, but also because it is education. So we don't really tend to put taxes like VAT on education because for the very reason that it will destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, for me, again, like, you know, if I was Education Secretary, what would my priority be? You know, whether this is wrong or right, I'm looking at the 90% of kids that go to state schools that I've worked in for the last 20 years and the things that I've seen, you know, kids, I mean, kids that just don't have access to, like, really basic and simple things.
But how will the 7%, destroying the 7%, help the 93%? The reason why the system is the way it is, the reason why 93% of the kids aren't having a good time, a lot of them aren't having a great time because education is shot to bits, isn't because of the 7%. It's because of the way governments have managed education. So you're punishing 7%. We won't pay for the cost of this, by the way.
I mean, look, ultimately, whatever you want to call it, the number, the fact is the country is not in a great place economically. That's not Labour's fault, because Labour haven't been in government for almost 15 years.
Well, the subsequent governments,
So we're in the situation we're in. That means that they have to make tough decisions to raise funds. This is one of those tough decisions. And so, you know, that's... But look, I'm going to be different from other people. I'm in politics to fight for the 50% that are being forgotten.
You're different from anyone I know.
Well, there you go. I'm happy to be.
Kelly.
He's made some errors, in my opinion. The question, are they messing up everything? Well, not everything, but he's made some significant errors.
They touch, give us some of the things that they've done well.
Nana, this is the Observer newspaper, the left-wing liberal Observer newspaper, who are leading at the bottom millions of pensioners skipping meals in winter fuel benefit crisis. And that is just such a cataclysmic error. Yes, there are 11.5 million pensioners who are getting 300 nicker a year, and lots of them don't need it. I'm with him on this. But to punish a lot more who are very close to the tipping point of getting pension credit, and also he settled the public sector pay, he settled that far too readily. He didn't get much in return, this is my understanding. And what he should have said was, instead, I think he threw 11 billion or 10 billion at them to settle it. What he should have said was, look, I can't give you 10 billion, because if I give you 10 billion, I'm going to have to take 1.4 billion away from the neediest, the vulnerable pensioners. So I'll give you 8.6 billion. And we'll nearly get to what you want. And that means that people aren't going to, as the Observers say today, not eat because they're frightened of putting the heating on.
Because on the scale of 1 to 10 for the broadest shoulders, I would say that a lot of the train drivers have broader shoulders than the pensioners, because you did say that those with the broadest shoulders would pay the highest burden.
Yeah.
So I don't get why...
The national insurance thing is wrong, I think.
Yeah, I mean... Another thing, national insurance...
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, hammering businesses to lower the threshold where they pay national insurance. And it's going to cost people pay rises next year.
I think that the bigger question is Labour messing everything up? I mean, look, let's just cast our minds back to June, you know. We're talking record NHS waiting times. We're talking kids learning in porter cabins. You know, we're talking sewage in our rivers, which I think is a bigger travesty than what I think lots of people realise. Just an utter disgrace. Crimes, you know, not being dealt with. Prisons overflowing. Like, this is everywhere you looked. Everywhere you looked. I mean, I've got friends that are lifelong Tories, and they were, you know, deeply critical. And this is also... There were Tories that were saying the same thing. We've messed up this, we've messed up that. This is only June. Now we're talking 5 months later. And look, I'm not saying, oh, you know, we're going to keep blaming the Tories, but you've also just got to be sensible here. They had 14 years. That is the state they left the country in. Everywhere you look was a mess. I can't see anything good, including we're going to come on...
What about inflation? I mean...
Yeah, inflation, 2%.
They sorted out inflation. I mean, people can't say... You can't say well done to Rishi Sunak, because had it been high, they would have blamed it, and so you take your wins.
Yeah, I mean, well, OK,
that's one thing, inflation.
Maybe there's one or two things that towards the end they were, like, doing OK on, but we're talking the vast majority of things were falling apart, left, right and centre.
Nobody will defend them on that.
And then now, you've got 5 months saying, now, this is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it very strongly. I've got no doubt in my mind, and you can replay this clip in 4 years' time, 5 years' time. This country is going to be in a better place in 5 years' time. Schools are going to be in a better place. Hospitals, GP clinics, more police officers. I've got no doubt in my mind we're going to put the police officers back on the streets. You know...
Well, it depends.
What is it?
Susie, it depends what you think, what you define as better. That's really what would...
Do you know, I think the public want Keir Starmer to address immigration. You know, when he was doing this big reset the other day, and he said there are milestones, one thing that he didn't really address is immigration and how people feel about illegal immigration. Now, earlier on in the summer, it's just a lazy, convenient fallacy for people like Wes Streeting and people like Keir Starmer to label people in Liverpool and Southport and the North. If they've got a problem with illegal immigration, then they've got to be some sort of right-wing nutcase. Believe me, I'm a Scouser. I can tell you that the people who've got problems with illegal immigration in the city of Liverpool and who want to go down and try and lob a brick at a copper's head and torch a hotel, they'll be Labour voters. It's the city. It's the city of Liverpool.
Well, I mean, look,
let me qualify that.
No, I'll just say to you, that's a broad brush. You can't.
But he's got a broad brush. I'm a Scouser. Most people vote Labour in Liverpool. And, OK, well, if you flip it round, what you're saying is that you can't be a Labour voter and have a problem with illegal immigration.
No,
that makes no sense.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you just said that all the people there would have been Labour voters.
Generally speaking, they would be.
But I'm just saying that there's no evidence of that.
But you don't... He's saying that they're far right. Where's his evidence?
Well, exactly. I'm not defending him either. I'm just...
So that's my point.
You're saying something extremes, which...
Well, what I'm doing is balancing it. All I'm doing is trying to address it with some balance. That they're not all far right. Yeah. Because what he's saying is that you can't be racist and vote Labour. That's ridiculous.
Well, I don't think he specifically said that.
No, but that's by implication what he's saying.
Well, listen, I think what he is actually saying, and if he refers to people as far right is known as, I would say, the extreme right wing, which would be kind of Hitler territory, where you're a complete neo-Nazi on that side. And that's, that's what I would term far right. People define it as different things, but...
Yeah, I think there's a big difference, isn't there? You do have people that are genuinely racist, and you've got people that generally want to incite hatred. And then there are just people that are concerned about illegal immigration, and I think Labour need to be humble and listen to those people, and I think they're doing that.
Well, I think they may be listening, or I don't know what...
I'm not sure they are doing it. He won't talk about it.
I couldn't even speak for them. I don't know what they're doing.
Increasing deportations under Labour.
That's true.
Well, that's one thing, but stay with us, because coming up, Supplement Sunday, where I speak to the panel about some of the other stories that caught their eye. Stay tuned.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution, and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment, and climate change. So he founded the organisation, and I joined him with three goals, really: education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. This is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, so towards the end of the show now, but it's time for Supplement Sunday. Joining me, political commentator Susie Stride and broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. I'm Nana Akua. Who wants to go first? Who supplements first? What have you found?
Well, I've found a story that's going to nod towards tonight's Celebrity Jungle fight finale. I don't know whether you're watching it, but Rebecca Vardy, who was in the programme 4 or 5 years ago, and Anton Deck have been taking the mickey out of her, honestly. And even I've started to feel sorry for her because she's not there to fight back and defend herself. So the Daily Mail have spoken to Rebecca Vardy. Who better to speak to than an embittered ex-husband about what she's really feeling at the moment. And Steve Clark, who was married to Vardy for just over a year, said she's desperate to stay in the limelight and is 100% jealous of her wag rival Colleen Rooney. She's just desperate to stay relevant and keep her name in the news. It's quite pathetic. She's so jealous of Colleen. Colleen Rooney could win it. I don't know whether you guys are watching it.
I think she will. I've not watched it.
What a great person she is. You haven't been watching it?
I don't watch it.
No, that's fine.
But my sister and her husband are really, really into it, and so, like, I know there's lots of people that are. But I did watch a bit of the documentary, and clearly Colleen Rooney, you know, had to put up with all that crap from whatever her name is.
Apologies for the language.
Oh, sorry,
there.
Rebecca Vardy. Apologies. And you know, it'd be lovely if she's kind of, you know, if she wins, because I think she put up with so much, and it was nasty.
Oh, right. She's a great person.
Stride, your supplement.
So
please.
mine is about, can Labour really claw back the missing PPE billions, which does look like is going to be a hugely complex challenge. But just looking at, you know, 15 billion worth of PPE that was wasted, you know, and it was personal connections, the Tories and their friends, and whatever her name is, Michelle Moan, you know, and like you said, she should be in prison and whatnot. And I just think it was massive.
Well, hold on a minute. What do you mean she should be in prison? If anything's actually been proven yet, she hasn't gone to the court of law yet.
No, but I think, like, yeah, I think
you need to put this into context. Susie and I were talking in the green room, and Susie said she's the sort of person that should be deported.
Well, listen,
I said, where are you going to support her to? She's British.
Well,
so far, there's anything held against her yet. So
yes.
Castigate her without her having
it'd be good to. I think it's important to have some justice around this. A lot of wasted taxpayers' money, you know.
All right. Well, my one is about white Britons out in the cold, described as racist as MI5, MI6, and GCHQ try to increase diversity, and they've banned white British students from applying.
For the MI5?
For jobs, yes, the intelligence programme. They've launched a summer internship programme.
It just goes back to our
earlier...
earlier...
banned white British students from applying.
Our earlier story with the military electric vehicles. You shouldn't pander to any sort of lobbying group. It should be a meritocracy in the army. It should be the best vehicle with the best engine, and it should be the best man or woman for MI5. Irrelevant of what colour they are.
But a couple of people being in touch says, David says, Susie is delusional. No way will things get better under Labour's socialist agenda. It cannot be done unless you work in the public sector. Anyone else, the bus is parked already and you're thrown under it. Right, well, let's have a look. During the show, I've been asking throughout the show, is Assad fleeing Syria a good thing for the UK? And according to our Twitter poll, 28% of you say yes, 71% of you say no. Well, brilliant. Well, thank you so much to my pal, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also political commentator Susie Stride. And as ever, thank you to you for your company. I'll be back on Friday at 9:30 for Britain's Newsroom. I'll see you then. Take care. I'll leave you with the weather. Have a good week.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara will be clearing its way southeastwards with the winds slowly easing before higher pressure starts building into the week. So this is the storm that will gradually clear its way southeastwards, but we still have a real squeeze in those isobars, so indicating some strong winds. So through this evening, it's going to be a damp evening across the central parts of England and the southeast with outbreaks of rain. Further towards the north, though, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, here we'll hold on to the clearest skies, and that will allow temperatures to fall underneath the light winds. So here we could wake up to a touch of frost. Further towards the south, still breezy, especially across the English Channel, with lows around 6 or 7 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, it is going to be a cold start across Scotland with a frost in places, but also perhaps some freezing fog. That's a similar picture across Northern Ireland as well. Bright skies to start, but with a touch of frost. Further across England and Wales, a lot of clouds still around with some showery outbreaks of rain just coming in towards the south and east. It is still going to be breezy, especially along the south, but light winds further towards the north, and towards the north, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine through Monday. Further south, though, we will still hold on to a lot of cloud, but it will be a lot drier than what we've seen over the weekend, with a few showers on and off. Otherwise, a cold feeling day across the north underneath the clearest skies, but further towards the south, highs of up to 9 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, a lot of clouds still focus across much of England and Wales, with some outbreaks of showery rain, but clearest skies further towards the north with a dip in temperatures. But we hold on to higher pressure as we go through the week, but it is still going to be quite cloudy at times. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and